skies return. It's cold overnight, 37 for the low. The weekend looks pretty good. Saturday, sunny, a cool day, 64. Saturday night, the night of the full pink moon, partly cloudy and 47, and Sunday sunny and warming up to 75. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
It's bagel loan time, probably for you and for a lot of other people who are watching those mortgage rates dip. If you have purchased a home in the last 3 years, call my friend Stewie at 314-324-4440. That's 314-324-4440. Stewie's going to walk you through how a bagel loan works. And essentially what you can do is, especially if you've had a mortgage purchase in the last 3 years, if the mortgage rate that you qualify for right now is lower, he's going to help you refinance with a bagel loan, which means you pay no closing costs. This is a very, very good option for you to lower that big monthly obligation you have on that mortgage payment. Kenny reached out to us on the YouTube live chat the other day and said that Stewie helped him get his mortgage rate down a full point, and that equated to $300 back in his pocket every month. 314-324-4440. Call or text 314-324-4440 and talk to Stewie about a bagel loan. Google the bagel loan, NMLS number 226715.
Hey, it's Mark Reardon for the Doctors at Ophthalmology Associates. We call them the Doctors because they've treated more than 250 doctors, more than any other practice in St. Louis. So if you're looking for the best doctors for your best vision, it's Ophthalmology Associates. Doctors Greg Birdie, Ranjan Malhotra, Robert Brusati, and Andy Royer. Doctors Birdie and Malhotra are cornea surgeons and experts in the diagnosis and treatment of diseases of the eye. I had an eye disease when I was younger. It left me with a silicone buckle around my right eye, so I put my trust in Ophthalmology Associates to take care of my annual checkups. Maybe you're experiencing dry eye, allergy eyes. They can help. They can help with cataracts, macular degeneration, glaucoma, and LASIK surgeries. And if you're looking for the best eye care, it's Ophthalmology Associates. Make an appointment today by calling 314-966-5000 or online at youridoc.com. They have a great office location just west of 270 on Manchester Road. Again, the phone number, 314-966-5000. The website, youridoc.com. Ophthalmology Associates.
The Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup Tournament is coming back to St. Louis. Join us on May 6th or May 7th at Energizer Park for the round of 32 and watch St. Louis City SC compete with teams from around the country for America's most historic trophy. Tickets are available now for the round of 32 and round of 16. Learn more at stlcitysc.com/Open Cup and help the boys in red bring home an 11th U.S. Open Cup to our city. Is thinning hair or receding hairline making you self-conscious? Stop feeling embarrassed about thinning hair and start looking and feeling your best with Hair Grow by New Nordic. Available online at Amazon, Walmart.com, and NewNordicUSA.com, or in stores at your local CVS.
That is exactly what I needed to hear.
Thank God someone here knows what they're talking about.
That's us. That's right. Gotta love this American ride.
Right, you need to take the time and get the full picture.
Don't get me wrong. I love the ladies. I mean, they rev my engine, but they don't belong in the newsroom. It is Anchor Man, not Anchor Lady.
What do you want from me? I'm not a married sweetheart.
Goodness sake, kid. Keep your voice down. Your father's listening to the radio.
I'm not a married sweetheart.
This is the Annie Fry Show.
Welcome to the Annie Fry Show. Brad Young sitting in today for Annie. She's out, but that means I get to come and have fun with the cool kids. So thanks for joining us today. Ryan Wiggins, as always. Good to see you, sir.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this Friday for since I've known it was happening, which is probably about a week and a half ago.
Okay, well, Friday's been happening for, I think, for centuries, for millennia.
No, but I was not looking forward to last Friday at all.
Oh, you weren't? Oh,
no, it was this Friday.
This Friday.
Not last Friday?
Not last Friday at all, because there's Bluebell ice cream out there.
Oh, I didn't know
There's Bluebell ice cream out
leftover.
there now?
No, it's leftover.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
from Tuesday.
Nobody told me about free ice cream.
Yeah. So, we could probably do that while we talk.
That would make great radio. Mr. Range, good to see you, sir, as always.
You too.
Hey, we're going to have lots of stuff. I told Brad Range before the show that I had like 3 shows worth of material to go through.
You always
today.
do.
I always do, because there's always stuff to discuss. But before we dive into any of that, the issue du jour because Trump tweeted this out, or not on Truth Social rather, last night, was that he now wants to make daylight savings time permanent. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I was hoping that this was still an issue on the table because I think Elon Musk when was daylight savings? About a month ago, roughly now.
Correct.
Maybe a little bit more.
No, it was in late November.
Well,
the new one.
Switch.
The new one.
The
Yeah,
Switch.
the Switch. I'm sorry. Yeah,
It was
in March.
about a month ago.
It was.
And at that time, Elon Musk did a poll on Twitter. And he said, would you rather have it stay this way or that way? Daylight savings or standard? And the poll was almost 50-50. And it was hundreds of thousands of people voted in it. And then you find out later that Trump was actually using that poll to decide what to do. So I was surprised to see Charlie Kirk put up the same poll yesterday. But his had a third option, which is leave it alone. So I clicked on it, of course, to see how it was going. Pretty much evenly split between the three.
Oh, sheesh.
So I just don't know. I'm glad to see somebody saying, yeah, let's do something different here, because everybody just constantly complains when it happens, including me. But I don't really know what the change should be or whether we leave it. I don't know.
Well, it's tough. And part of the reason it's tough is because of how it affects kids at school and stuff like that.
That's
sports.
The main issue right there.
Yeah. So one of the things my wife brought up to me is kids at a bus stop early in the morning. I'm not sure which one would be worse, but if you don't change it one way, you'd have kids that are waiting in the dark at like 8:00 in the morning for the school bus. But if you do change it, then you would have kids at the end of the day that couldn't go to athletic events because it'd be getting dark too soon.
Do we have a lot of athletics? Maybe so.
Oh, for sure.
That don't have lights now?
The majority of spring athletics don't have lights.
Man, even the smallest schools I go to have lights anymore.
Right, but not on their baseball fields.
Well,
not on their lacrosse fields, not on their soccer fields.
And my daughter, my oldest daughter, the only athlete in my entire family, she was in rowing, and you don't have lights out on a river, or a lake, so if she would have to be rowing in the dark if something didn't change.
Yeah.
So that's the whole issue, and that's why, and frankly, that's why we have this bifurcated system, is to try to please everybody. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, it really screws up a lot of stuff when we have to change those clocks. I personally would like to see it as daylight savings all the time. So,
which is that it stays later,
correct,
later,
and that way, when you get off work in the fall, you're not, it's not dark at 5 p.m.
I will add this to the conversation. I used to never want to wake up in the morning. The older I get, I just naturally wake up earlier. Is that an aging thing, or is it just a me thing? You too?
Yes.
What's the deal?
I hate it.
I used to stay up all night. I mean, in college, you're up till 3 a.m, and that's when things start to shut down. And now I'm up at 6 a.m, maybe 7.
I'll tell you what changed for me was getting this job. So I have to get up at an earlier time than I would for my other jobs, because you can't. Before I started working here, I was I did lawn care and stuff like that, and you can't go out too early because there's dew on the grass and it'll clump and it'll just look terrible. So you just start your day later and you go later into the afternoon, evening, whenever you get done. But when I started here, I would have to be here at the time that I get here, which means I started regularly getting up at 6 a.m. And then when I did that, I was tireder at the end of the day, and I would start going to bed a little bit sooner. I mean, I still have nights where it's like, nope, it's 2:30 and you ain't going anywhere, Brad. Just stay. You're awake. Sorry.
So Ryan, here's what I want to know though. When you wake up at 6 a.m., do you feel the urge to yell at kids to get off your lawn?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do.
Oh, Brad, absolutely get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah,
that could be a signify
getting older too.
You're getting old.
Well, I do it now preemptively. There are never kids on my lawn unless they're my own.
Okay.
And so I yell and I make sure that they never show up, which they don't.
You know what keeps kids off your lawn? The Second Amendment. That will definitely keep kids off your lawn.
I couldn't tell if this was a Brad Young segue. Like, oh, you had a Second Amendment story, and you're like, that's how we're going to get there?
Brad Young segue. I do have good segues.
You do.
I will tell you that.
You're famous for them.
But this is not a Brad Young segue. Just an observation that the Second Amendment will definitely keep the kids off your lawn.
Yeah, so
no
the First Amendment.
Question about it. No, the First Amendment won't.
Yeah, by yelling.
Oh, I'm thinking freedom of association. They're going to try to be out there and associating on your lawn. Like, no.
You're such a lawyer. Gosh, you went right into it. This is why I like you being on the show, because we get the legal background on everything, even the mundane.
Yeah, even the mundane. That's exactly right. I like to play this game sometimes when stuff is absurd. It's kind of like I like to break down Star Trek issues. And it's, of course it's absurd, but you analyze it as if it were real. And so when I face absurd issues in the real world, I try to break them down from a legal perspective. It can be rather humorous. But yeah, Second Amendment.
Sounds like it.
Second Amendment, guaranteed to keep the kids off your lawn. That could be a meme right there.
Just put a sign up that says we have guns. Stay out. No,
the Second Amendment is honored here. That's what that's the sign.
Oh man, I never put up signs saying I have guns.
No, I don't either.
No, I don't want anybody to know.
I just go out and show my guns.
Oh, really? Well, that's an old man
which
thing.
I mean my muscles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, your biceps are Des and Troy. Is that it? Destroy?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
He needs a needle and thread because he's feeling ripped.
The other thing, though, I did want to mention is, and I thought we were done with this after Tampon Tim Waltz, but the Baltimore City Council just this week has a bill that would require that menstrual products be given away for free in men's restrooms.
Whenever I think of Baltimore, I think about these issues.
You associate Baltimore with administration,
just menstrual issues in general.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's good to know that they're tackling these head on.
Well, here's the thing that comes to my mind, and it's hard to discuss this seriously. All right,
but we're gonna try.
But of all the things that face, all the problems that face urban schools, the financial problems, the violence problems, the being able to recruit good teacher problems, there are countless issues that face urban schools. But Baltimore wants to devote time, effort, and money to put tampons in men's restrooms? Really?
We've been talking about this attempt at a bill that's working its way through the Illinois legislature right now that would regulate home schools and private schools. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's the state. They can't even come up with an actual justification for why they're doing it, because normally they'd put some sort of cloak in front of it and be like, oh, well, we're trying to stop what they say is truancy. And nobody's like, what the hell are you talking about? But so anyway,
how could there be truancy for homeschool?
Staying home from homeschool.
That's what I mean. It doesn't make any sense. So they can't even figure out how to pitch this thing.
Right.
And there's a huge uproar in Illinois, and not just among conservatives and Republicans and homeschoolers and private schoolers, but among people who would be typical Democrat voters. I mean, there are people who are like, whoa. My kids go to a private school. My kids go to homeschool, and they're kind of getting upset about it. So there's a lot of pushback against this bill, and we're all waiting to see what happens. Are they just going to jam it through anyway? Because they absolutely could. They got enough votes to do it. But there's enough pushback that maybe they won't. So we're all watching this. But you just brought up a point that made me think, man, there's another angle to that we haven't even really discussed. It's that they're ultimately they're trying to discourage homeschooling.
Of course, because the history of homeschooling has been one of conflict with the government, because the view of the government is that we control the education of your children, that you parents are too stupid, you're too much of an imbecile, your IQ is too low, your values are not correct. You cannot possibly teach your children. Only we, the academics of America, can teach and mold your children. And to some of that is true to this point. They want to mold your children into atheist, leftist, socialists, and that's what they want to do with their children. And so there's always been this pushback against homeschooling.
Yes, and the angle that I'd never thought of until just now talking with you is that why would you want to, if you're a state that's broke, which every state is broke, but Illinois,
Missouri is not broke.
Well, okay, but why would you want to fiscally, no matter who you are, any state, especially Illinois, why would you want to discourage people from taking kids out of the school system and putting less of a burden on the school system, which is already underfunded and mismanaged and doing a poor job? So you would be trying to push more kids into the public schools, it's for the reasons you just said. It's for indoctrination and control and everything you just said.
And it's a worldview issue. It's
but
a worldview issue.
It doesn't make sense financially at all.
No, not at all. But when you're arguing from a worldview, they would rather have the added burden of kids in school. They would rather have that than have you outside, have you teach your children outside of the indoctrination dome that is our schools. And it's also even goes into colleges, but they don't control that as much. But yeah, they don't want your kids outside of that dome.
The government, the leftist form of government, wants more control over everything. Another random thing about Illinois that I would have never known, and this could have changed because it was a couple of years ago it was this way. I haven't checked recently. I doubt it's changed. Is that if you decide to live off the grid in Illinois, you have to still plug into the grid just to be sure legally. you can't just keep your own energy if you're going to have a solar farm or whatever you're going to do. You can't just keep your own energy. You can do that stuff and you can use your own energy, but you still have to be on our grid so that we know about it.
Yes.
Why?
Wow. Well, if you're talking about weird bills, another bill that's being pushed in Illinois by the governor's office is a requirement for all-you-can-eat buffets in every town. I don't know if you knew that. Well, it's coming straight from Pritzker.
There are very few things that he and I would agree with.
Straight from Pritzker.
Well, I'm part of that contingency.
Bipartisan support.
Yeah, this one has support from Ryan Wiggins.
Yeah. Well, that's the most dangerous place in America, is standing between Governor Pritzker and an all-you-can-eat buffet. So
I'm willing to stand there.
Really? You are?
I stand up for the rights of buffet owners.
I have, Mr. Wiggins, I have described you to many of my friends, even last week, as the winner of the KFC chicken award that you got.
Thank you very much. I did very little earn that. But
I know, but you got free chicken for a year, didn't you?
Didn't like.
I did. Here's what I did. I mean, you guys are making me blush. I went down there when I saw that a line was forming.
No, so you were following the herd. That's what you were doing.
That's how I won.
You followed the herd.
And it paid off. And I was one of the first 50 in the door. Yeah, that was a couple years ago. I don't go to KFC quite as much as I did when it was free. But I still go there once in a while.
Yeah, well, are you saying that when you were getting it for free, it was still overpriced? Is that
no?
Okay.
I'm saying that I just don't go back as much because it's not free.
The free food was the enticement.
It was the price. It really had a hook in me.
Yeah, I speak at a lot of conferences, and when I'm introduced and I go up to the microphone, I always say, "Hi, we'll talk law for food." I mean, that's why I'm here. I get a piece of goopy chicken, and then I talk for an hour. That's what happens.
Goopy chicken.
That's what it is. It's
accurate, though.
Wait, do you say that at the event?
Oh, yeah. What are they going to do? Fire me? I'm working for free.
The caterer is going to be like huffing and puffing.
I don't care. I don't work for the caterer.
That's not goopy chicken.
It's always goopy chicken.
It always is.
And gray green beans. It's always the same thing. Goopy chicken and gray green beans. And then I eat that and I'll talk for an hour. So, I mean, that's just me. Hey, I'll tell you what's also me.
There it is.
Yep.
Good
There's
segue.
The transition. What's also me is I love all things military. I love the military tech. I love military history. And that's why I'm really excited to get a chance to talk to Jonathan Horn. He's an author and former speechwriter for President George W. Bush. And he's got a book that's just coming out called The Fate of Generals, MacArthur, Wainwright, and the Epic Battle for the Philippines. We'll talk to Jonathan Horn next on the Annie Fry Show, 97.1 FM Talk.
My son turned 10 just the other day.
This is the Annie Fry Show.
Come on, let's play. Can you
The Annie Fry Show is streaming online. Watch us live on YouTube and subscribe.
He walked away, but his smile never did. It said, I'm gonna be like him. Yeah, you know I'm gonna be like him. And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon. Little boy.
I'm Altima Morgan and Morgan and Morgan. Every time one of my children started driving, it was terrifying. Thousands of accidents happen across the country. We see it every day. If you've been injured in a car accident, call us.
Dial #law or visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
Who has the most 5-star reviews in St. Louis? Is the Post-Dispatch Window Retailer of the Year, J.D. Power Award winner 5 years in a row, and has the nation's best warranty coverage? Renewal by Andersen, that's who. Take advantage of our great April sale. Buy one window, entry door, or patio door, and get the next 50% off with 0 payments and 0 interest for 12 months. Check it out at rbastl.com or call 314-332-1924. Renewal by Andersen, a better way to a better window. This May, the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup is coming back to St. Louis. Join us at Energizer Park for the round of 32 as St. Louis City SC plays for this historic trophy. Get tickets now at stlcity.com/Open Cup.
This could be the #1 tax saving strategy for your retirement savings, and it's hidden inside IRS tax code section 1.408A-4. Discover what it is and how you can make your money go further in retirement in a 3-hour adult education class called Retirement Planning 101. Hey, it's Sue Thomas, and this is a one-night class. It's taught by advisors from financial and tax architects. They have decades of financial planning experience, and they hold these at colleges and libraries throughout St. Louis, and you'll learn about reducing your taxes, maximizing Social Security, paying for health care, and more. And they do it for free, but bring 3 canned goods for St. Louis Crisis Nursery. There are a few openings left for classes this month, so register now by calling 314-947-2012, 314-947-2012. That's 314-947-2012.
You're listening to the Annie Fry Show live from the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation Studio. Air Comfort Service is hiring licensed journeymen. Don't have a journeyman license? Air Comfort Service will help you get it. Get guaranteed hours year-round and more. Apply online at aircomfortservice.com.
97.1 FM Talk is proudly supporting the Guns N' Hoses Queen of Hearts raffle, benefiting the St. Louis Backstoppers. Learn more at stlgunsandhoses.com and listen to the Mark Cox Morning Show Fridays at 8:20 for winner announcements.
This is the Annie Fry Show. Follow Annie on X at Annie Fry Show.
Welcome back to the Annie Fry Show. Brad Young sitting in today. And as I told you before the break, I'm excited to talk to Jonathan Horn, not just because he's a former speechwriter of George W. Bush, but also that he's got a new book coming out called The Fate of Generals MacArthur, Wainwright, and the Epic Battle for the Philippines. So this is my chance to talk about not just the book and what he has to say about generals, but also just to talk about military preparedness in general, because that's a very strong topic for me. Jonathan Horn, welcome to 97.1 FM Talk, St. Louis.
Thanks so much for having me today.
So I'm excited about your book, and I know that it's coming out soon. We'll talk about it when it's coming out, but let's get a flavor for this, because as I was perusing the book last night, as I'm looking at the topics and reading a lot of the in-depth material that you provide, one of the things that I learned is this, because we all know General MacArthur. I mean, he's famous, but yet General MacArthur owes a lot of his fame, doesn't he, to General Jonathan Mayhew Wainwright?
That's exactly right. Everybody is so familiar with that famous vow that Douglas MacArthur made after receiving orders to leave his army in the Philippines in 1942 and escape to the safety of Australia, where he said, "I shall return." But very few people remember the vow that MacArthur's, the second highest ranking general in the Philippines, a man named General Wainwright, made after MacArthur left. And his vow was he was going to stay in the Philippines and share the fate of his men, even when that meant becoming the highest ranking American prisoner of war of the Japanese during World War II. And so it seemed to me, as you said, you couldn't understand the vow that Douglas MacArthur made to return to the Philippines unless you understood the story of the man who bravely stayed with his troops and became a prisoner of the Japanese.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Philippines in World War II, because typically when you talk about some of the more well-known theaters of war when it comes to World War II, the Philippines doesn't necessarily rank high up in the public knowledge of a theater of war when it came to the Philippines. So just kind of give us an overview before we dive into some details about General Wainwright or General Douglas, but how critical were the Philippines to the battle against Japan in World War II?
That's a great question. You're right. Most people don't think about the Philippines as a critical front in World War II, but it was a critical front. In fact, the Philippines were American soil. They were an American colony, and it was Douglas MacArthur's father, Arthur MacArthur, who led the very first American troops into the city of Manila in 1898 during the Spanish-American War and saw the American flag raised above the city. In the years afterwards, American strategists in Washington realized that it would be very hard to defend the Philippines in the event of war with Japanese. And the reason is sort of obvious. If you look at the map, the Japanese could bring so many more troops to the Philippines before reinforcements could come across the ocean, Pacific Ocean, from the United States. And they realized that our forces in the Philippines might be in serious trouble in the event of war with Japan. And that is exactly what happened. In fact, just this week, we observed the anniversary of the largest surrender of American forces in history. It happened on April 9th, 1942 on the Bataan Peninsula, when nearly 80,000 United States forces surrendered to the Japanese.
And when we talk about the nuclear bomb that was dropped that ended World War II, the nuclear bombs, I should say, I remember that in history class, obviously I wasn't around then, but reading and studying this idea that the issue that was facing Harry Truman at the time was, if the war, it just ends, then there's always going to be these battles that are going to be going on some of these islands. And so I know that the justification of dropping the bomb was to try to get a unilateral surrender of Japan in order to force the fighting that would happen on these outlining islands to come to a close. Did any of that impact any of the battles that were going on the Philippines?
You know, what's interesting is the Japanese themselves didn't really believe in surrender. And that was something that American commanders discovered over and over again when they faced the Japanese in the Pacific. And that was something that even Wainwright, before he had the terrible task of having to surrender his army to the Japanese, discovered himself. And so you can imagine what that meant for a prisoner of the Japanese to be a prisoner of an enemy who doesn't believe in surrender. It means they have no respect for you whatsoever, torture you, abuse you. And I think that had to weigh heavily on President Truman. He knew what it would cost American forces to invade the main islands of Japan to try to end this war, and the terrible cost of life that it would take. And to be honest, it would have been just catastrophic for this country, and the bomb really was the only way out of this.
We're talking to Jonathan Horn. He's a former speechwriter for George W. Bush, and also the author of a brand new book that's coming out called The Fate of Generals: MacArthur, Wainwright, and the Epic Battle for the Philippines. And Jonathan, when is your book coming out?
It's coming out on April 15th, which is next week, next Tuesday. It's tax day, but this is a more pleasant way to spend your money on this book.
And why is it, do you think, that we all know of Douglas MacArthur, and I don't know that present day Americans can truly understand how much of a force of nature that Douglas MacArthur was in the 1940s and 1950s? Give us a sense here for a modern audience of just how big a figure Douglas MacArthur was in that 40s to 50s timeframe.
You know, you put it very well. MacArthur really was America's most famous soldier entering World War II. And when he did reach Australia, he made that famous vow, "I shall return to the Philippines." And it wasn't yet American policy to necessarily return, but the force of MacArthur's words alone became a national commitment. It was a sort of an example of a general setting national policy with his words. And there were those in the years that followed 1942 who thought returning to the Philippines was a detour from the ultimate goal of defeating Japan. But MacArthur felt it was a moral obligation for our country. The Philippines were American soil. They were an American colony. His father had helped make it so. We had been forced out of those islands at the point of a bayonet, and the only proper way to return was with our own bayonets and to take them back from the Japanese. And that's exactly what Douglas MacArthur did when he landed in the Philippines in 1944.
And wasn't part of it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert here, not me, but wasn't part of the motivation of MacArthur to go back to the Philippines, obviously to retake the Philippines because it was technically American soil, but wasn't another part of his motivation to try to bring home some of the captured American soldiers that were still being held in the Philippines?
That's exactly right. There were still prisoners being held in the Philippines, and MacArthur wanted to get to them as fast as he possibly could. Now, the Japanese had taken a number of the prisoners they had taken in the Philippines and sent them to other places. Wainwright himself went from the Philippines to various prisons in Taiwan, eventually all the way to Manchuria, if you can believe it, where he was facing negative 49-degree temperatures. And he was spending the war in 1945. And we think about that. Of course, we think there's only a few months left in the war. But Wainwright was so isolated, he had no idea what was happening in the outside world. You can see in his diary, he thought he was going to be a prisoner at least until 1947.
And again, I'm trying to compare and contrast from a modern day viewpoint, but I know most Americans will remember John McCain and the endurance that he had to exhibit when he was being held captive during the Vietnam War. So when you look at this General Jonathan Wainwright here, when you look at him, General Wainwright, what kind of torture did he have to endure? You just mentioned freezing temperatures, but what other types of torture did he have to endure?
The Japanese would beat him. They would systematically starve the prisoners. His weight, this is a 6'2" man. His weight falls down within months of being captured by the Japanese to 125 pounds. And to be honest, he's getting slightly better treatment than lower ranking officers and lower ranking soldiers are too. And this is from the Japanese this is America's highest ranking general in captivity, and he's being treated this way. And of course, there's other forms of torture too. Isolation. Yes. Long periods pass with no word from the outside world. And also Wainwright is thinking, as he is a prisoner, that Americans will never understand the decision he made to surrender for the sake of his men. And of course, that doesn't end up being the case. He returns to a hero's welcome in the United States in September 1945 and receives a ticker tape parade in New York City and does receive the Medal of Honor from President Harry Truman.
We're talking to Jonathan Horn, who is the author of the coming book coming out next week, The Fate of Generals, MacArthur, Wainwright, and the Epic Battle for the Philippines. And Jonathan, before we change topics here, I do want to, because I want to talk about military preparedness today. But before we get to that, one more thing about MacArthur. His zeal for returning to the Philippines, retaking what was American land, and also recovering American POWs. That attitude, that zeal, don't we see that to some extent carrying forward even to today when it comes to the desire of Americans to make sure that we recover those who have given the greatest sacrifice they can for our country in terms of dying for our country or being captured for our country?
Absolutely. And it's all part of the attitude of leave no man behind. And of course, for MacArthur, you can imagine how personal it was, because he had actually received orders from President Roosevelt to leave behind his army to starvation and surrender in the Philippines and go to Australia, which does, feel a lot like the captain deserting the sinking ship. It wasn't his idea to go. He received orders to do it. And so you can imagine how personal this vow was to General MacArthur to fulfill it. I can't think of any example in history of a general having such a personal connection to the mission he was asked to carry out.
And I want to pivot just a little bit here. We're talking to Jonathan Horn, the author of The Fate of Generals, MacArthur, Wainwright, and the Epic Battle for the Philippines. But Jonathan, when I look today, and I'm looking at today through the lens of history, I know that before World War I, the United States was not very strong militarily. If you look at World War II, before World War II, we had the same situation where we weren't necessarily strong militarily. What lessons can we learn from that as we look to today at the possibility of what's called near peer adversaries, Russia and China, the possibility of China invading Taiwan or blockading Taiwan? What lessons from history can we learn about military preparedness today?
That's a fabulous question. And of course, as you look at that region of the world right now, the United States remains treaty bound to defend the Philippines, which of course touches the South China Sea, where the Chinese are making grand control of that body of water. And you see confrontations between Philippine vessels and Chinese vessels ramming into them. So it is a spot with high tensions. As to the lesson, I think the best lesson is the lesson that Wainwright himself drew when he finally did leave prison and return to America in September 1945. And it's national preparedness, making these investments in our military. Basically, I think in the years leading up to World War II, strategists realized that it was going to be impossible to defend the Philippines in the event of war with Japanese. And our forces ended up paying a terrible cost over there for that unpreparedness, because our country was not willing at that point in our history, as you said, to bear the burdens of being a great military power.
Well, and last question, because we're coming up at the end of the segment, Jonathan, but as I follow military trends today, I know there was a period of time where the Philippines wanted to distance themselves militarily, economically, relationally from the United States. And yet today we see the Army basing what's called the Typhoon missiles in the Philippines as a hedge against China. China doesn't like that. You already referenced the hassling that China is doing against the Philippines. So because of China, are we seeing a growing or a return rather to a connection or a return relationally between the United States and the Philippines?
I think absolutely. And Pete Hegseth was just in the Philippines, and he said that this was an area of the world where our allies were going to see we were going to invest in a way that was unprecedented. And I think we have these bonds with the Philippines. And in fact, it really does go back to MacArthur keeping his vow to the island during World War II. People still remember that in the Philippines. And it's going to be very important as we go forward and tensions continue to rise with China.
Jonathan Horn, author of the book, The Fate of Generals, MacArthur, Wainwright, and the Epic Battle for the Philippines, on sale April 15th next week. Jonathan, thanks so much for taking just a little bit of your valuable time to join us this afternoon on 97.1 FM Talk St. Louis.
Thanks so much for having me.
I could talk to that guy all day long, and I'm hopefully it was as enjoyable for you as it was for me. Hey, when we come back, we've got some more news to discuss, to break down, news that you may not hear anywhere else other than right here on the Annie Fry Show, 97.1 FM Talk.
This is the Annie Fry Show. Find the podcast, on-demand audio, and more at 971talk.com/Annie.
Michael's Flooring Outlet is easy to find online, igotfloor.com. Shopping for flooring is exciting. It is such a transformation when you put new flooring into your home, refreshing those, maybe old, dingy, worn hardwoods in your house with something that really brings the home to new life, or tearing out that old grungy carpet and putting in fresh new Mohawk Smart Strand carpet. The smell is so fresh and new, and the carpet is so soft to the touch. It also comes with an incredible resilience to make sure that you can still live your life on the carpet that you've now put in your home, made an investment in, and also enjoyed great value when shopping at Michael's Flooring Outlet. They have 3 locations across the St. Louis region. They're ready to invite you in their doors in St. Charles County, also West County, and Darden Prairie. But you can go online and learn about everything I'm talking about here, including the ability to request a free estimate or maybe even an in-home consultation. Just visit Michael's Flooring Outlet online at igotfloor.com.
Stop everything you're doing right now and ask yourself, are you currently receiving steady paychecks? What about when you're retired? Will you receive a monthly check to cover your expenses and also have some fun? Marvin Mitchell and the team at Compass Retirement Solutions calls this mailbox money. It's a monthly check you'll receive throughout retirement. They don't want you to worry about if the money will show up or how much money you'll receive. The only thing they want you to think about is how to spend it when it arrives. Find out how to get enough money in your mailbox every month when you're retired. Call Marvin Mitchell and the Compass Retirement Solutions team at 314-373-1598 to start working on a plan that can help you create the monthly income you'll need in retirement. Call 314-373-1598 right now and schedule a visit with Compass Retirement Solutions. 314-373-1598. Firm offers insurance services, investments, and services offered through Compass Retirement Group, a registered investment advisory in Missouri and Illinois.
Little Big Town is coming to town on July 25th. We've been giving away tickets all this week, and today is your last chance. That'll happen again in the 2 o'clock hour, so come back or stick around through the 2 o'clock hour for your chance to win Little Big Town tickets at July 25th at the Hollywood Casino Amphitheater. Also, today's YouTube live chat poll, I'm not sure we mentioned this yet. Do you consider yourself blue collar, white collar, or other? Comment if you are other in the chat as to what that means. But we're all curious as to whether you are blue collar, white collar, or you consider yourself something else. YouTube live chat poll, 1243. This time check is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
The Foley Foundation works tirelessly to bring American hostages home. Kim St-Ange here. We're raising awareness about the Foley Foundation's mission to reunite families, hold captors accountable, and prevent future hostage taking. Visit 971talk.com/events to learn more.
This is the Annie Fry Show.
Short people got no reason. Short people got no reason.
Wiggins! Oh! Wiggins! The bee or not the bee?
Brad, if you are unfamiliar with the way that we do the bee or not the bee, here are the rules. I give you a headline. You tell me whether it is satire, a.k.a. the Babylon Bee, or it is a real headline, and then I'll give you the rest of the story.
Well, and I'm always about the rules, because the rules are always
The rules
important.
matter.
Oh, they matter. Oh, yes, they do.
All right, here we go. First one. Most protesters remain unaffected by Trump's showerhead deregulation.
The bee?
That is definitely the bee.
I'm going to say real.
It could be true without it being a real headline.
It does come from the Babylon Bee, though. Quote, deregulation of what heads? Protester Willow Moonbeam said when asked about Trump's showerhead deregulation. I'm out here to talk about Donald Trump's blatant trampling of our freedoms, destruction of our economy, and poisoning of our planet. And you're asking me about something I've never heard of in my life. At Publishing Time, activists also claim to be unfazed by the potential of prices on soap, shampoo, deodorants, and other personal hygiene products going up due to tariffs.
Come on, Pierre, let's run. We might be washed.
Well, and again, like Ethan's point, I think Ethan's point is that it can be the bee and it can be true at the same time.
This happens a lot.
It happens a lot. It really does.
Yeah.
Because
it's what really makes good comedy.
It does.
Because when you look at those protesters, you're looking at them going, you know, you have never had a shower, have you?
I just love the way the article starts. The showerhead deregulation starts. Deregulation of what heads? You're asking me about something I've never heard of in my life.
My body, my choice.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. Georgia police arrest Speedy Gonzalez.
Oh,
real.
No. This is real.
I'm going to say it's real.
You're saying real?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. It sounds
it's
too specific.
It's too
right. It's
too
much.
wild for it to not be real.
It is real. And it's not like they arrested the cartoon character in some sort of, public PR funny thing. This is a real person. Gainesville police arrested 40-year-old Speedy Gonzalez. Yes, that is his real name.
Massive win for his parents right there.
Oh, no doubt.
After identifying him on surveillance footage at a Walmart in March, Gonzalez is accused of carrying out a series of thefts in these multiple stores. It lists all the counties. And then it says, investigators say that Gonzalez used a simple but effective method to conceal his thefts. Whenever I hear these, I can't say I'm proud of them. I just am like, you kind of did something there.
What if you invested that energy in like legal ways?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
They found a way to not be caught. He allegedly stuffed high-priced small items such as nicotine products, diabetic test strips, and gum. I didn't know gum was expensive now.
Expensive gum, man.
Into larger containers like trash cans or mailboxes. And then at the checkout, he would actually buy the mailbox. It was just full of stuff. And they'd leave the store and nobody would have any idea. So
Well,
genius.
But that reminds me, I actually witnessed a crime 2 weeks ago. I was over at the Emmy Micro Center, which is in the Brentwood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm in line, and I'm the next guy in line, and I'm buying a new backup hard drive for my law firm. And I'm the next guy in line. The guy in front of me is wearing a hoodie. He's got shorts and sneakers, and he looks to be about 16, 17. And so he sets this very expensive Sony digital camera on the counter. And then when the clerk turns to type it in, he picks it up and bolts for the door. And so the clerk is like, hey, I want to chase this guy. So alarms are going off because it wasn't desensitized, the anti-theft device. So it sets off the alarms. And this clerk is chasing this dude through the parking lot. Never gets close to him. Never. But I looked at the cash register because I was the next in line at the cash register. And it was $1,200 camera with $400 in taxes. And so it was a $2,600 theft. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's an expensive camera. But yeah, and then we saw the guy out walking through the parking lot. And then this is the best part. There was a bunch of guys at a different counter, and they were like from my hometown in Southern Illinois. So they were saying, hey, if you give me what I'm buying, I'll chase that guy through the parking lot. I'll chase him down right now if you just give me what I'm buying for free. And I said to him, well, how would that be any different than the guy stealing something? You're just recommending
to chase
something.
the criminal.
I know, but then you're getting something for free. So the financial
reward,
detriment.
It's the reward of being a good citizen, Brad.
I don't know if he's a good citizen if he's just saying, I'll do it, you give me free stuff too.
Brad, I don't know if your lawyer is rubbing off on me, but then doesn't Micro Center open themselves up for liability?
Yes, they do. And that's the other thing I said to this guy. I said, well, if they're paying you to chase down criminals and this guy blows your head off with a pistol, now you're going to file a comp claim because you've been injured while working for the company that just got stuff stolen. And the guy said, I don't even know what you're talking about, but I'll still chase him down. And I thought, okay.
You actually had that conversation with that guy?
I did. And I desperately wanted to put on my Southern Illinois drawl to talk to him because he sounded a lot like this, just like in my.
Wait, was he talking to you?
Yeah.
Was he talking?
As if you had the authority to tell him he could do it?
No, I was arguing with him because he was talking to one of the other clerks.
Wait,
I'm like, dude.
My question is, why would he go to the cash register or to the desk in the first place?
Good reason
to get the camera.
Good reason, because that's the easy. You can't exit the store unless you go through the checkout. And this place where I was checking out was the closest checkout counter to the door.
But he still rang it up.
But he sat it down so that the guy would turn so he could get a head start on him as his attention was diverted. It was very smart strategy.
The way Micro Center is laid out, it would look incredibly suspicious for somebody to walk with a camera past everybody in line and then out past the 6 registers and then out the door.
Right. So that's why he got the maximum amount of distance before raising suspicion.
Tell you what, there's 2 forms of theft there. Number 1 is the guy who stole the camera.
Yeah.
Number 2 is the $400 in taxes that you'd have to pay to buy that camera.
I know. I saw it. It was going to be a $1,600 purchase. So, but I will tell you, the Brentwood police were there in like 90 seconds. So I was impressed by that. But yeah, witnessed my own crime.
Did they catch him? Did you see them?
No.
Okay.
Now, he walked through the parking lot. Then he was taunting the clerk. He was pointing at the clerk like, you couldn't catch me.
Really?
Yeah, he was taunting him.
That's crazy work. But wait, but the police didn't catch him either?
No, because he was already gone
He was
before
gone
the
by
cops
that
showed
point.
up.
Okay, gotcha.
Minute and a half head start.
Fascinating.
All right, next one. Actual Nazi struggling to stand out now that everyone is a Nazi.
B. I'm voting
That's
Babylon
the
B.
B.
It's the B.
Hit it.
A guy named Alex Polhaus still proudly displays his Nazi tattoos and clothing when he's in town, but he noted it doesn't seem to turn heads like it used to in the old days. Now I think everyone assumes I'm a victim of left-wing vandalism. It's sad. At publishing time, Polhaus had found himself further saddened and confused when a mob of pro-Hamas supporters on a nearby campus cheered when they saw his swastika armband. That's solid satire, you guys.
That's so good.
That's
Solid
solid
stuff.
All right. In effort to clean up the city, San Francisco erects 45-foot naked woman statue from Burning Man.
Oh, the jokes.
Real.
I'm going to say real.
Yeah, this one's real.
This is real. The sculpture stands at 45 feet tall and weighs about 32,000 pounds. The sculpture, which is now in San Francisco, was made by Petaluma artist Marco Cochrane, and a decade ago on Treasure Island, it is comprised of 55,000 welded connections. The sculpture first debuted at Burning Man in 2015.
Wait, here's my question. A Petaluma artist. A Petaluma, if my foreign language skills are anything, isn't that the same word for pants?
I think you're thinking of pantaloons, and this is Petaluma.
Oh, okay.
Close.
Right.
Just like my favorite blues player is Snuggeroo, but that's not really his name. It's Snuggerood, and I want him to be cute like a Hello Kitty character.
Exactly.
Snuggeroo.
I think that sounds like a backwards robe that you wear.
A
Get you
Snuggeroo?
A Snuggeroo.
Yeah, exactly.
So the first place that I knew this was real because I saw a video on Twitter of the construction or the workers, of working on
statue.
it, and they were like,
yeah,
they were standing right under the butt.
Only one way to get inside.
They were cleaning out that statue's butt. It was the first thing they did when they erected it.
Oh,
that guy was going right in that statue's butt, and people are all videoing it. There's tons of videos of it. All right.
Oh, said a lot of words.
There were so many videos of that on Twitter, you couldn't get away from it.
12-year-old humor right here.
That guy's going in that giant statue's butt.
Quick, get your phone. You can always count on
who
it. Right
wouldn't
here.
video that?
Oh, I know.
Everybody would.
Yeah, I'm going viral.
Look at him drilling that statue's butt.
Well, should we go in the foot? No, let's get a giant ladder. Go in right there in the hole.
Right
All
now.
right. Trump classifies Panda Express as domestic terror organization.
Gonna go with the
don't
B.
know.
You gonna go with the B?
I think it's the B.
I'm going to go real just because I want to make sure we're not unanimous.
Trump classifies Panda Express as domestic terror organization is the B. Quote, no longer will we tolerate these restaurants with foreign ties to operate within our borders, Trump said. For far too long, while the Chinese government has taken advantage of our country through unethical trade practices, we have watched the influence of Panda Express grow throughout America. No more. Have you ever had their chow mein? Way too much shredded cabbage.
First L that Trump's taken during this admin.
Do we have time for one more? We're going to 6 or 7?
56-50.
Okay. All right. Landmine Detection Award won by Giant Rat.
Real.
Yeah, this seems like something a rat would be good at.
Real.
That
Sure.
seems like something a rat would do.
Brad's
yeah,
familiar.
it is real. The rats are trained to detect the chemical components of explosives and rightly ignore abandoned pieces of metal to find unexploded devices much faster. The previous holder of the Landmine Detection Award was another rat that was called Magawa. It retired in 2021 with a total of 71 mines found. The new one has found 101 landmines in Cambodia.
Well, you know why scientists use lawyers now for testing instead of rats, right?
No.
Well, there's more lawyers than rats. There's less chance of emotional attachment, and there's some darn things that rats won't do. That's it. Yeah, great reaction there. Okay, we're going to end on a low note here on the Annie Fry Show. Hope you're having as much fun as we are. The Annie Fry Show, 97.1 FM Talk. We'll be right back.
If you're a supporter of the Second Amendment, you need to be a member of the Range St. Louis West. Mark Cox here. You know, they get free lanes and free firearm rentals, 5% off firearms and suppressors, 10% off accessories, and 15% off classes. The new benefit on Sundays from 10 to noon, the lanes are for members only. And in April, you get 2 free basic cleanings of a modern firearm. Check them out at 14803 Manchester Road in Baldwin, TheRangeSTL.com.
There's something new taking shape in downtown St. Louis, an experience unlike anything else in sports. From the hustle on the pitch to all the flags and smoke and 22,000 fans chanting STL in unison throughout Energizer Park. This is more than just a game. This is St. Louis City Soccer. Learn more at stlcitysc.com/tickets and experience it now.
Hi, I'm Bob Kershaw with Retirement Advisory Group. Are you worried about market volatility? Are you concerned your money won't last you through retirement?
Hi, I'm Tammy Kershaw, and as a family-owned business, we are committed to protecting your retirement, whether you're nearing retirement or already retired. We have a lot of folks that aren't aware of all the new investment choices that are available, which give you growth and protection from losses at the same time. Are you aware of all the fees that you are currently paying? We can show you how to avoid those fees. So come in now for your free retirement review and get a second opinion on your retirement plan. And just for coming in, you'll get a copy of our latest edition book, Your Key to a Worry-Free Retirement. Let us show you how to retire with confidence.
We are proud to say we haven't lost a penny of our clients' money in 39 years, and we won't lose a penny of yours either. Let our family help your family. Call us now at 314-993-9494 or go online to retirementkey.com. That's retirementkey.com.
Baseball is back, and this season there are more ways than ever to watch your Cardinals on FanDuel Sports Network. As always, you can watch FanDuel Sports Network through TV providers including DirecTV, Spectrum, Xfinity, Fubo, and more. New for 2025, you can subscribe directly to FanDuel Sports Network and stream the Cardinals without blackouts. And for a limited time, you can get started with a 30-day free trial using code CARDS30DAY when you sign up at FanDuelSportsNetwork.com. Visit Cardinals.com/TV to learn more.
Who has the most 5-star reviews in St. Louis? Is the Post-Dispatch Window Retailer of the Year, J.D. Power Award winner 5 years in a row, and has the nation's best warranty coverage? Renewal by Andersen, that's who. Take advantage of our great April sale. Buy one window, entry door, or patio door and get the next 50% off with 0 payments and 0 interest for 12 months. Check it out at rbastl.com or call 314-332-1924. Renewal by Andersen, a better way to a better window.
KFTK FM Florissant from the Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's Injury Lawyers Studio. Call 314-500-5000.
That's 314-500-5000.
All on the free Odyssey app.
Trust the process. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. That message to Americans from the White House after China made another retaliatory move, raising its tariffs on U.S. goods to 125%.
The president's point about his trade and tariff agenda is to bolster our manufacturing industries here in our country, to bring down the cost of living here in our country, and to ensure that we are maintaining critical supply chains here in America.
White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt also reaffirming that the president is open to a deal with China without saying whether Beijing would have to make the first move. U.S. officials are already negotiating deals with multiple countries after the president's pause on tariffs for them. Right now, Wall Street is rallying. The Dow's up 662 points. Federal investigators heading to Florida where a small plane crashed near a small airport today, killing everyone on board.
A private aircraft described as a Cessna was seen circling and in distress not far from the runway at Boca Raton Airport in South Florida, and then it crashed on a nearby roadway.
3 on the plane, 3 souls on board, and we can confirm those were all fatalities.
Michael LaSalle, the assistant fire chief in Boca Raton. The airport there is a small general aviation facility. A motorist ended up driving through the fireball and the debris created by the impact of the aircraft. He was treated for non-life-threatening injuries.
Fox's Eben Brown in Miami. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy visiting an FAA facility in New Jersey as the FAA and NTSB investigate yesterday's deadly helicopter crash into the Hudson River.
I've seen a lot of the reports on Twitter
Twitter. I've seen the video. There's a lot of speculation as to what happened in regard to that crash.
Duffy telling reporters he won't get ahead of the probe. The sightseeing helicopter appeared to break apart before it went down, killing a family of 5 from Spain and the pilot. America is listening to Fox News.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? When it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Switch to Consumer Cellular to get the same fast nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Plans start at just $20 a month, and now for a limited time, new customers can get their second month free. Call 1-888-FREEDOM, visit a store near you, or consumercellular.com and start saving today. Plans include $5 credit for autopay and e-billing. Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
Why'd I go to the doctor? One day at the firehouse, I was so lightheaded I could barely stand. Even my crew noticed. Getting checked out was the right call. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation, weather.
Not much going on this afternoon, though. The northwest flow is back, and that's why we are noticeably cooler. 57 for the high. Tonight, clear skies return. It's cold overnight, 37 for the low. The weekend looks pretty good. Saturday, sunny. A cool day, 64. Saturday night, the night of the full pink moon, partly cloudy and 47, and Sunday sunny and warming up to 75. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
Ready for instant curb appeal that comes with a 25-year transferable warranty? Call Rhino Shield today. We do brick, block, stucco, asbestos, aluminum, steel, cedar, and more. Over the past 20 years, we've done thousands of homes, businesses, churches, schools, condos, parking garages, large metal buildings, and strip malls, from Champaign to the Lake of the Ozarks. We do flat and sloped metal roofs to extend their lives too. Proud to be veteran-owned and manufactured in the good old USA. So we're tariff-free. We're exceeding expectations every day. Evaluations are free. A+ rated with the BBB and a lot of 5-star Google reviews. Call 877-25-RHINO, 877-25-RHINO, or 877-25rhino.com. See what we did there? Genius. Tell them, ladies.
Don't hate, don't Rhino, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
The Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup Tournament is coming back to St. Louis. Join us on May 6th or May 7th at Energizer Park for the round of 32 and watch St. Louis City SC compete with teams from around the country for America's most historic trophy. Tickets are available now for the round of 32 and round of 16. Learn more at stlcitysc.com/Open Cup and help the boys in red bring home an 11th U.S. Open Cup to our city.
Wiggins America.
Why does the far left go around drawing swastikas on everything? They're drawing them on signs and shirts, cars.
Saturdays from 7 to 8 a.m. and Sundays from 7 to 8 p.m. Spend your weekend in Wiggins America.
That is exactly what I needed to hear.
Thank God someone here knows what they're talking about.
That's us. That's right. Gotta love this American ride.
Right, you need to take the time and get the full picture.
Come on, turn the radio on. It's Saturday and I won't be long.
Don't get me wrong, I love the ladies. I mean, they rev my engine, but they don't belong in the newsroom. It is Anchor Man, not Anchor Lady.
What do you want from me? I'm not America's sweetheart.
Goodness sake, kid. Keep your voice down. Your father's listening to the radio.
I'm not America's sweetheart.
This is the Annie Fry Show.
Welcome back to the Annie Fry Show. Brad Young sitting in today. Glad you are with us. I'm enjoying reading through some of the comments, particularly on the poll, because our poll today is, do you consider yourself blue collar or white collar? And, I'm clearly white collar as an attorney, but yet today I'm wearing a blue collar. So I don't know how that fits into the mix. But one person, I think it was Chris F., posted that what do strippers, how are strippers categorized as blue collar, white collar, or I guess technically no collar?
So if you're a male stripper, black collar.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Are you speaking like you know? Did you used to do this, or do you go to male strip shows?
No,
How do you
I don't
know?
do any of these things, but I've seen tons and tons of pictures.
Oh, okay, all right.
And they're all wearing those little ties. So it's black. It's black tie.
Well, the only
Black
thing
collar.
I know about male strippers came from watching Saturday Night Live when Chris Farley was on there with Patrick Swayze.
Yeah, to me that was a disgrace.
And I had to turn my head away. I could not watch that. It was just too much human flesh.
Weird news about that. Bob Odenkirk, who is pretty well known. Bob Odenkirk. Actually, he went to Southern Illinois University.
Yeah, at the same time I was there.
Really?
We were there at the exact same time.
I didn't know that you went to Carbondale.
Yeah, SIU Carbondale, class of 87.
Okay. Yeah, so he's one of the more famous alumni from SIUC. And I went to SIUC also. And so just that has nothing to do with the story.
But do you have a ring? See, I've got a Carbondale
no, I
ring.
don't.
I do.
Did you have to buy it?
Of course I did.
See, that's why I don't have one.
Oh, okay.
I'm cheap.
Did it come in a cereal box?
No.
Maybe I'll have one then. But he recently, he was a writer for Saturday Night Live when that sketch came on. And he recently came out, I don't know why, within the last 6 months, and was like, I hate that sketch. People are like, why?
What?
And he goes, because it's such a cheap joke to throw fat guy out there and make him dance like he's sexy. He's like, there's nothing to the sketch, but it's so funny.
And Chris Farley enjoyed it.
Yeah.
He liked that kind of stuff.
It's the same thing we deal with in other topics where are you defending the person who doesn't want to be defended? Because that's what it sounds like.
Yes.
Chris Farley clearly willingly wanted to do that.
Of course. Defended on somebody else's behalf.
Yeah.
And he got to dance with Patrick Swayze. So, yeah, he was all for that. Hey, one of the things I wanted, if you've been following some of these Doge hearings, not just the announcements from Doge, but the Doge hearings on Congress. There was a hearing this week, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who leads the subcommittee on Doge, she talked about, and this to me was, we all kind of knew it, but it's shocking to hear the facts. I mean, for example, that the Trump administration has canceled 700 federal leasing property that nobody was going to, because everyone wants to work from home after COVID. No one wants to actually have to go to work. And so the government was paying for all of these empty buildings, leasing, not even buildings that it owned, but buildings that it were in space that was being leased for no one to show up. It totals, wrap your head around this, 7.9 million square feet of space, and the move saved a minimum of $400 a year with regard to canceling these leases.
400 or 400 million?
400 million.
Okay.
$400 million.
I was going to say that much space for $400 is
no, that'd be good. No, 400 million. Sorry. One such canceled lease was a 15-year, $250 million agreement for luxury office space on Pennsylvania Avenue, signed by the Biden administration to house the Voice of America and the U.S. Agency for Global Media. The building actually had zero broadcasting capabilities.
Yes.
And taxpayers would have been on the hook for another $130 million for renovations. It's just been sitting there. $250 million.
While you were talking, I looked this up because I thought that sounds a lot like the Carrie Lake thing, and it is. That is her thing. She's in charge of the Center for Global Media or something. When you said that, I'm like, that's it.
Yes.
Because she went and did a video. She walked around the space. That building is nice.
Yeah.
That is a nice building. And she said that the lease was ending soon, or maybe it wasn't even ending that soon. Like it would have gone into Trump's term.
Right.
But right before, and we're talking days before Trump took office, they went to the owner of the building, which they had not been using anyway.
Yeah,
so they were not using this building at all. And it was really impressive looking building.
Mm-hmm.
And they went to the owner and they said, hey, how about if we signed a new 15-year lease with you for $35 million, $320 million, something crazy. And he's like, well, absolutely.
Yes, sir.
And they're going, why? I mean, that's a deliberate That's a deliberate waste of money.
Yes.
There's no benefit to anybody.
No,
not even the agency that it's for, because they weren't using it. So you're going, okay, well then what is it? Because they're probably padding somebody's pockets, and they wanted to make sure that continued for another 15 years with that contract.
Wow.
It's sick.
It is sick. It is sick. And the other thing that's sick, and this is technically hearsay, I'll admit this, but a friend of mine has a personal friend who was working 3 different jobs that were work from home jobs, but were full-time jobs. But if you're full-time, I know my daughter, one of my daughters works from home. She puts in like 62 hours a week. I get that. A lot of people who work from home work hard, but a lot of people who work from home, particularly for the federal government, aren't necessarily working that hard. That's why this individual, who has now been fired by the Trump administration, was holding down 3 different federal jobs, and he was doing them all at once from home. So he was getting triple the salary for essentially still only working 8 hours a day. Well, what's funny is Joni Ernst was asked about the situation where postal workers, now figure this one out, postal workers were working from home. And they were upset when they were told you have to come back to the office. This is what Joni Ernst said when she was asked about it.
It even goes further than that, Maria. Things as outrageous as trying to get workers back into the office. We actually had workers that showed up at the office to protest having to come back to work at the office. So we're finding all kinds of things with the Doge work, the squeal work that I have done for 10 years. And thank heavens we have President Trump and Doge, the Office of Government Efficiency, that's finally cracking down on these types of activities.
Yeah. Let that sink in for a second. The postal workers were showing up at work to protest having to come back to work.
Nope, not sinking in anymore. I think I got it the first time.
Well, to me, that's astounding. I mean, it's like one of the things when I talk to employers, I represent employers. I do employment law. I'm on the employer side of employment law. And when people get hurt at work and the employer says, I'd like you to sign this report showing what happened to how you got hurt at work, I get this call at least once a week from my clients, where the employees who got hurt at work or in an accident say, I won't sign that. I refuse to sign that accident report. You can't make me sign that accident report. And so I tell them every time, here's what you do. You draw underneath the line where it says Joe Sixpack or whatever it is your name is, you write underneath it, refused to sign. And then you ask the guy, will you sign this demonstrating that you're refusing to sign the accident report? 100% of the time they sign it. Oh, yeah, I'll sign that. I'll sign it to show that I'm refusing to sign it. Huh? Wait, you're signing the document to signify that you're refusing to sign the document. Is that what you're doing? They'll sign it 100% of the time. And to me, this is just as crazy that people would show up at work to protest having to come back to work.
Well, with the document, though, the issue isn't that you can't get somebody to sign. Like they're saying their arm's broken, I can't sign anything. Oh, but I'll sign something showing I can't sign anything. They just don't want to sign it because they don't want to agree to the terms. Right?
Exactly. But you just say refuse to sign and then they sign it, which the whole point of it is to get them to acknowledge that they've seen the accident report. So in my instance, you're still tricking them into signing it by simply saying refuse to sign and then they sign it. So then when I cross-examine the guy, I can say, you saw that this was the allegation from the employer, didn't you? Yes. And I can show that because it is your signature at the bottom, isn't it, sir? Why, yes, it is. But that's my signature showing that I was refusing to sign it. It doesn't matter if you're signing it saying, I think there's life on Mars. You're signing the darn document.
To show that you saw it.
That's all it means.
Gotcha.
But to me, that's just as ridiculous as showing up to work to protest coming back to work.
Well, these jobs, if it's one thing if you can somehow land 2 or 3 or 4 simultaneous private sector jobs, because these companies aren't talking to each other. They don't know. There's probably ways you could prove it, but it's harder. But this is the government. It's one entity these agencies should be talking to each other. We know that they don't.
Correct.
But they should be, because it's all technically one entity. And in
Yes.
fact, that's one of the things Doge is doing is bringing all of them under the same umbrella. And I don't know if you've seen the reports about the HHS being, it's so massive. RFK is in charge of it now, of course. It was 20,000 people, and they had so many duplicate agencies.
20,000 people
in the HHS. They had so many duplicate parts of the agency doing the same thing that they were, and this is how crazy it got, that they were actually competing with each other over the same types of grants and stuff with each other within the same
internally
organization.
competing.
Yes. And they would start to, like, one would find some data about something that was necessary to their cause, and then they would charge the other one to see it. That's how big these agencies have gotten, and how bloated and unnecessary. And so when RFK came along and said, we're firing 10,000 of these people.
Yeah.
Part of it was just duplicity.
Unbelievable. We've always known. I mean, this isn't news that our government has bloated. It's duplicitous. It's multiplying, doing things over and over and over again, and then having somebody else do the exact same work. We know that, but to see the numbers, I mean, for example, one of the things that came out this week on Doge is that the government was spending $4.6 billion, $4.6 billion with a B, for furniture for empty buildings.
Yes, I saw this too.
So not just the lease
Yeah.
of buildings that sit empty, but $4.6 billion for furniture that no one's ever going to use.
It's just insane.
It's crazy how much that is.
There are really big companies that sell for $4 billion.
I
We're
don't-
just blowing it away
you could
on
buy
worthless furniture.
You could buy half of an aircraft carrier
Yeah.
for $4 billion
Yeah.
instead of buying a whole bunch of sofa loungers and Barca loungers and Ethan Allen furniture. A lot of this was, they were buying Ethan Allen furniture. Now listen, I've got a good job. And most lawyers, you don't find any lawyers getting public aid, but I can't afford Ethan Allen furniture. All right. I'm not buying any Ethan Allen furniture, but our government is. I mean, they spent millions.
So they were not just buying stuff from IKEA.
No.
They were buying the absolute top of the line furniture for empty buildings.
Stuff.
When you talk about stuff like that, what you're seeing is people who know that it's not their money, and to them it doesn't matter.
They don't even benefit from it.
I
though.
can just like I work at a church, and you will see people that will serve in a church that will have this idea that, like, oh, it's not my money, so we can get A, B, C, or D, and we're like, no, we don't have any money. we run barely at zero because we're a not-for-profit. We don't,
Sure.
we don't have money. But then these people come in whenever it's not their money, whenever they didn't have to work for it, or when they didn't have to earn it. Basically, tax dollars are taken by threat of law, and they just have taken the money from the people. And then to them, it doesn't matter. And that really, like, it amazes me, but it also disgusts me and aggravates me, because I know what it is to work for a dollar. I know
Sure.
what it is to make money. I've worked blue collar and white collar jobs. I know what it is.
Mhm.
And Uncle Sam always gets a huge chunk of it. And then you see, it's like, all right, well, whatever, you're taking it. And in the back of your mind, you're thinking, hey, they're going to do something right with this. They're going to do something good with this. Taxes are part of life, but I understand you can't function a government with no money. And then you see stuff like this, and it's like, no, instead we're buying Ethan Allen furniture to furnish buildings that have nobody in them.
Nobody.
So you're buying expensive furniture for people to not use.
Not use, exactly. And one of the this exemplifies this idea of human nature, Brad, that you just talked about. When one of my daughters was 10 years old, I dropped her off to go to a roller skating party, and I gave her $5 and for lunch, because they were selling a hot dog and a soda for $5. So I gave her $5 and I said, Catherine, don't buy anything stupid with this. And so she goes in and she's roller skating, and I went home, and I came back 2 hours later, and she walks out and she's wearing Billy Bob teeth. You know what Billy Bob teeth are?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the teeth that makes you look like you're from the Ozarks and your teeth are sticking out. And I said, Catherine, I told you not to buy anything stupid with that money. And she said to me, as God is my witness, she said to me, but Dad, Billy Bob teeth aren't stupid. And I tell that story Billy Bob teeth aren't stupid, in case you couldn't hear me speaking with Billy Bob teeth in my mouth. But I tell that story to show from her perspective that money cost her nothing. She did nothing to earn it. She did nothing to deserve it. And so from her perspective, I'll buy whatever it is I want to buy because this literally costs me nothing. And that's the view of government that I detest. But when they forcibly extract money from our wallets at the point of a gun, if you don't pay us, ask Wesley Snipes, you're going to jail. And they forcibly take that money from our wallets and they spend it on Billy Bob teeth. They spend it billions of dollars on Ethan Allen furniture for office space that is not even used. That is the definitive Billy Bob teeth that our government spends money on. Hey, we've got to take a break. Speaking of money, I got to do the transition, right? Speaking of money,
you're good at it.
We're going to talk to Dave Simons coming up after the break. He is an expert on all things money. He will break down what it is we're currently going through economically and where we might be heading in all the uncertainty. Dave Simons brings clarity to what's happening to your hard-earned money. Brad Young sitting in for Annie Fry today, 97.1 FM Talk.
You're listening to The Annie Fry Show. Follow Annie on X at Annie Fry Show.
Clint Black in concert. Clint Black, an incredible night featuring some of his greatest hits. This Saturday, 7 p.m., the Family Arena. Clint Black in concert. Special guests Ruby Lee and Emily Ann Roberts. On sale now at the Carroll House Furniture box office located at the Family Arena or Ticketmaster. Don't miss Clint Black.
It's the greatest pop rock of the 60s and 70s. The Happy Together Tour 2025 with the Turtles, Jay and the Americans, Little Anthony, Gary Puckett and the Union Gap, the Vogues, and the Cowsills. August 21st, the Family Arena. Reserve seats on sale now at the Carroll House Furniture box office located at the Family Arena or Ticketmaster.
Experience the exhilarating atmosphere of a Cardinals game. Join the sea of red in the wave around the stadium. Feel the rush of excitement as a home run lights up the sky with fireworks, bringing the whole ballpark to their feet. Nothing beats the thrill of watching the Cards get the W with the final out at the plate. It's more than a game. It's an experience. Visit Cardinals.com for tickets and info. St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
Game tickets? Check.
A round of cold beers? Check.
Ballpark hot dogs? Check.
Baseball is back and nothing beats a night out with the guys.
Or ladies.
At a Cardinals game.
From thrilling games and mouth-watering eats to the iconic ballpark energy, Busch Stadium is the ultimate spot for you and your crew to dive into America's favorite pastime.
Make your next night out the best one yet. Join us at Busch Stadium, where every hour is happy.
For tickets, visit Cardinals.com.
St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
When you get hurt, you don't want to end up on the injured list. You want to get back in the game, stronger than ever. At Morgan & Morgan, we're the home run hitters you need. Morgan & Morgan, proud sponsor of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Injured? Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
This could be the #1 tax saving strategy for your retirement savings, and it's hidden inside IRS tax code section 1.408A-4. Discover what it is and how you can make your money go further in retirement in a 3-hour adult education class called Retirement Planning 101. Hey, it's Sue Thomas, and this is a one-night class. It's taught by advisors from financial and tax architects. They have decades of financial planning experience, and they hold these at colleges and libraries throughout St. Louis, and you'll learn about reducing your taxes, maximizing Social Security, paying for health care, and more. And they do it for free, but bring 3 canned goods for St. Louis Crisis Nursery. There are a few openings left for classes this month, so register now by calling 314-947-2012, 314 314-947-2012. That's 314-947-2012.
Hey, it's Mark Reardon for New Perspective Senior Living, where your loved one will enjoy chef-prepared meals, engaging activities, state-of-the-art technology, and a welcoming community that feels like home. Visit npseniorliving.com to schedule a tour today. New Perspective, where every day is a chance to live life on purpose.
This May, the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup is coming back to St. Louis. Join us at Energizer Park for the round of 32 as St. Louis City SC plays for this historic trophy. Get tickets now at stlcity.com/Open Cup.
Tony La Russa here. Men, are you running out of stamina rounding third base? If so, call my friends at Victory Men's Health in O'Fallon, Illinois. Scoring at home is important, just as important as crossing the plate with the winning run. VictoryMen'sHealth.com.
You're listening to the Annie Fry Show live from the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation Studio. Save now with 2024 pricing and Carrier Cool Cash rebates up to $1,700 on a new HVAC system. For details, visit aircomfortservice.com.
The Mark Reardon Show.
Tashara Jones will no longer be the mayor of St. Louis. The writing was certainly on the wall. Now I'm under no delusion that Kara Spencer is going to come in and right the ship right away. She's got a big challenge in front of her. Plus, she's still very progressive.
Weekdays from 3 to 6.
This is the Annie Fry Show. Follow Annie on X at Annie Fry Show.
Welcome back to the Annie Fry Show. Brad Young sitting in today. Glad you are spending your Friday afternoon right here on 97.1 FM Talk. Obviously, it's an understatement to say that we've been experiencing a high degree of economic turmoil over the past month or so. A lot of turmoil. And we're going to talk to Dave Simons in just a few moments about some of that turmoil. But yet, here's what we're seeing now. And this is what drives me crazy when I watch the mainstream media, because they go crazy about saying these tariffs are going. And let me start by saying I'm not a fan of tariffs. I never have been. Most conservatives have not been traditionally in favor of tariffs. In fact, Democrats have always been the biggest proponents of tariffs in order to protect union-related industries like the steel workers, the auto manufacturers, and so forth. So even from that perspective, it shows you that Trump is really busting out of the traditional lanes of politics by advocating tariffs when that's traditionally been the realm of liberals to propose tariffs. But that being as it may, looking at the impact of tariffs, this is what the mainstream media gets wrong. If you watch the Today Show, the CBS Morning Show, whatever news you watch online, other than Fox News, because they're going to give it to you straight, here's what they say. And I saw this even this morning, where they talk about tariffs are going to cost Americans $6,000 a year in tariffs. Here's how that number is calculated. They take all of these tariffs, they calculate them up, and then they prorate it over a year. And that's how they come up with that number. But what the mainstream media doesn't understand is the idea of leverage and negotiation. So in litigation, I'm always on the defense side of civil litigation. A plaintiff's attorney calls me up and says, Brad, I'm going to demand $400,000 from you. That's forcing me now to make a decision. And then I'll say, well, I'm going to offer you $50,000 for this case. And by the time we go back and forth, we might resolve the claim for $100,000. But just because he started demanding $400,000 doesn't mean that's the true value of the case. That's called negotiation. And so what we're seeing right here playing out before us is a master class of negotiation on a global scale. Trump is saying to all these countries that have always hit us with tariffs, punishing goods that are made in the U.S. that we export to other countries, including a great deal of agricultural products that come from Missouri and come from Illinois. And within the sound of my voice, there are people who have to pay those tariffs. What they're doing now is what Trump is doing is negotiating. And negotiation brings better results. So when you see those estimates on what it's going to cost Americans, that assumes that nothing gets negotiated, which is the purpose of all this anyway. Anyway, I'll let you talk and hear rather from the real expert. Joining us now is Dave Simons. You know Dave. He's the partner managing director of One Private Wealth and Partners right here in St. Louis, specializing in wealth management, wealth accumulation, and how do you make sure that you have enough wealth going into your retirement, considering taxes and the stock market and all of that. Dave Simons, welcome to 97.1 FM Talk.
Brad, as always, thanks for the invite.
You know, it's always great to talk to you. I look forward to talking to you any chance I get, because listening to you explain things makes me smarter. So here's where I want to start our conversation. We've just seen over the past month, perhaps some of the greatest financial roller coaster gyrations that we've seen in decades, if ever. And I know, and you know, that the markets don't like uncertainty. Is that some of the cause of what we're seeing, this market volatility now, coming from the uncertainty of what's going to happen next?
It all starts there, Brad. You're exactly right. The market demands as much certainty as it can get. It's never going to be 100%. But it needs some clarity, and that's a word that's been obviously overused here in recent weeks, but it's very, very fitting. So you really have two things going on for a lot of this weakness. You've got the uncertainty factor. Okay, you just talked about negotiating and all that. What is this actually going to look like? And then on top of that, what made it really volatile this week is we're starting to get some anecdotal evidence. A lot of your business CEOs are talking about it now. This anecdotal evidence that maybe there is a slowdown in economic activity. My fear is this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, where this company says, you know what, we had these business expansion plans. Until we get clarity, we're just going to hold off. Oh, well, you're a partner of ours. We trade with you. We do business with you. We're going to hold off a little bit. And you get this domino effect. So that's the second part of this. Are we going into a recession? That's the unknown.
And of course, as you heard, we're talking to Dave Simons of One Private Wealth, and Dave, talking about uncertainty. When you look at this idea of countries raising their tariffs, lowering their tariffs, we now see this from China. Explain how that creates the era of uncertainty when it comes to the buying and selling and the shipping of goods, for example, with China or with Vietnam. How do the tariffs create this idea of uncertainty?
Yeah, great question, because it comes into play because these manufacturers, people buying and selling across the oceans, if you will, they don't know exactly what the future cost is going to be because these tariffs are being negotiated. It'd be great to be a little fly on the wall in the West Wing so we can get a little bit more clarity. But this country, ABC, okay, right now they might have a 20% tariff that we just put on them. What if it's negotiated down to 5? What if it's increased to 40? Well, if I'm a manufacturing company in that country and the people who buy from me in the U.S., they're going to say, oh, we're not really wanting to buy, right? Or maybe they're going to front load some of their purchases and build up their inventory, which isn't good. So you can see how this really just adds to a little bit of the chaos, a little bit of the lack of clarity, business today versus what the cost is going to be like a couple of months from now. Here's a little bit of personal evidence. So it just so happened, the timing on this, Brad, my wife, for the first time in a number of years, is in the market for a new vehicle. So I went to the dealership where she wants me to shop around, and they've got so much business coming in, which you would think is great, but it's all because people are trying to get ahead of what could happen with the tariffs, of the parts that we have to ship over here then to make that vehicle. So you could have all of this front-end loaded business, which is great, but then what if it dries up a couple of months from now? And that gets back to the fear of an economic contraction later this summer.
Yeah, that's a great example, a personal example. I saw a local interview with a small business owner who was describing how she had ordered products from China to resell in the U.S., and she ordered these products 2 months ago, and they just arrived at the docks this week. And so she was faced, because the tariff is assigned at the port of entry, not at the point of purchase. And so she was having to come up with an additional 40% to pay for the tariffs of products that she's going to resell. And she said, I can't resell these products with this tariff price because no one will buy them. This was a small business owner. And so the time lag between when she bought those products and now when she has them unloaded at the docks, just that short period of time creates uncertainty. But here's the question I have for you. I think a lot of folks, as I talk about economic issues, I do a lot with friends and family, they look at it like these are all forces beyond our control. These are things going on a global scale. I'm just trying to see if I've got enough to retire. And one of the things that someone said to me was, I keep looking at my 401k plan every day and it's just driving me crazy. What's your advice to folks? And when you have this hyper volatility in the markets, what should regular folks do when it comes to looking at their own 401k plans?
Well, I know this is cliche. I know it's going to come off as trite to a lot of people, but there really is something to be said about not doing anything, not making any big changes. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go in and what I call manage or massage on the margins. We've done that in our own portfolios. We took a little bit off of, let's say, large cap growth type of stocks, the ones that are most vulnerable. We moved that over to more boring value dividend paying stocks. We shored up our fixed income a little bit. We didn't make any wholesale changes. We didn't cash out. Our stock to bond ratio is still relatively the same, but we did get a little bit more defensive. But Brad, I hope this isn't too late advice for some people, but I always tell people this. Do a stress test on your portfolio constantly, especially if you are near retirement. And by that, what you do is you take 20% right off the top of your investment portfolio. So keep the math simple. If someone has $1 million of investments or a big 401k, make it $800,000 immediately today. Can you still retire and meet your long-term goals? If the answer is no, then I think that your goals were unreasonable. I think your goals are maybe you should have worked longer anyway, or you're too aggressively invested. So this is a lesson now going forward for those people who have many, many more years to retire. As you get closer, do that stress test, because if you're reasonably invested, as much as you hate a 20% decline in your portfolio, you should still be able to withstand that.
That is such great advice. We're talking to Dave Simons. He is the partner and managing director of One Private Wealth, based right here in the St. Louis area. And Dave, one of the things that you and I have chatted a lot over the years, one of the things that I like to quote you on is that when you're looking at your retirement, you're planning and looking at the long-term game, not the short-term game. And so when folks look at all of this stock volatility and they see it's almost like owning Bitcoin, one day you're a millionaire and the next day you're broke, right? And so how should this impact an individual's planning for retirement in terms of looking for that long-term strategy?
Yeah, and this would be true for everybody. I just did some interesting research this morning, Brad, and I'm going to impart some hopeful news for everybody. As volatile as the market has been, we look at something called the VIX. That's a volatility index, which went above 40, 45, touching 50 in the last week or so. In the few times that volatility in the market reaches these levels, and I'm going back 30, 40 years here, invariably the market is dramatically higher, and I'm talking double digits higher just 12 months later. And 3 and 5 years later, hugely higher. These typically create buying opportunities. Now, let me give the legal disclaimer here. That doesn't guarantee future results, of course. We know that. But it gets back to your question. How should people think of long term? These moments of volatility when people just want to stop the pain and maybe consider selling out, that's the worst thing that you can do. At the point of maximum pessimism, at the point of maximum pain, know that that's what actually ends up building wealth for you longer term. I know it's counterintuitive, and let me add one more piece of advice to this, Brad. instead of stopping 401k contributions, because that's what people tend to do in times of turmoil, well, I'm not going to add more money now. No, do the opposite.
Yes.
Add more.
Yes.
Good. Call your HR people. Go online and start dollar cost averaging more if you've got a longer term time horizon, because the chances are this market being higher 12 months from now are very strong. No guarantee, but the odds favor that.
Excellent advice, Dave. Dave, I've already plugged and mentioned where you are. You're right here in St. Louis, managing director of One Private Wealth and Partners. If folks want to get a hold of you to maybe use this as a temperature gauge to say, you know, I'm not properly prepared for long-term strategic planning for my retirement, and this shows I need a long-term plan, how can people get a hold of you?
The simplest way on that, Brad, is just to go to the team website. It's onepwm.com. So you spell out one, O-N-E, and then PWM stands for Private Wealth Management.
Very good. Dave Simons, I always learn something when I talk to you, my friend. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule today.
You're too kind, Brad. Appreciate it. Anytime.
Great talking to you, sir. Hey, we've got more coming up on the Annie Fry Show. You're right. This is not Annie Fry. I am not her, but I am Brad Young, sitting in on 97.1 FM Talk.
This is the Annie Fry Show. Follow Annie on X at Annie Fry Show.
Farming's hard. To feed the world, farmers have to work the land, brave the elements, and fight the battle against weeds. Weeds reduce crop yields, so prices go up and everybody gets less to eat. But 50 years ago, farmers got a new tool to fight weeds, glyphosate. It kills weeds while protecting the harvest. Time and again, it has been approved by the EPA and by leading regulatory bodies around the world. It helps enable practices that reduce erosion and keep soil healthy, which is good for the earth. Farming's hard, but it's a little easier with glyphosate. Learn more at go.bayer.com/glyphosate, paid for by Bayer.
I don't know if you heard with them, these energy mandates. Luckily, this year they stopped the continuation of this government mandates, but the new refrigerants did not stop, so that is out. So be careful, buyer beware on what you're purchasing. If you're looking for a new system and just want a common sense approach to picking a system, i.e., are you going to save money? Is your energy bills going down? All the stuff that we've been hearing for about the last 25 years. Bottom line is, when it comes to the efficiencies, it's going to be your house. I only have 60 seconds to do this in, so if you want a common sense approach and you are looking at purchasing a system or getting prices on systems, please call me. It's one easy number, Missouri and Illinois. It's 314-293-2600. 314-293-2600, or on the internet is bartinman.com. That is Bart with a B, Inman with an I.com. God bless.
Noble Gold Investments alert. Gold has surged 46% in less than a year, doubling the gains of the NASDAQ and S&P 500. But this isn't just another rally. Investors are losing confidence in paper gold and demanding physical metal, creating a massive gap between gold owed and gold available. But this isn't about how institutions broke another system. It's about how you can profit from it. Right now, Noble Gold Investments has a limited supply of investment-grade gold bars and coins available. As banks scramble to fulfill their obligations, pushing gold prices higher, you can profit. Smart investors are already moving into physical gold. Noble Gold Investments makes it easy for you to do the same. And right now, when you make a qualified investment, Noble Gold will add a free 10th ounce gold coin to your order. Don't wait until it's too late. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com now and turn their panic into your profit. noblegoldinvestments.com.
Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Mark Cox here. If you're nearing retirement or already retired, call my friends Thomas Helbig and Bob Kershaw with the Retirement Advisory Group. They'll show you how to link to the market without the risk. They're the official financial advisors of my show. Go online to retirementkey.com.
Remember, we're giving you one more chance to win Little Big Town tickets about an hour from right now in the 2 o'clock hour. July 25th, Hollywood Casino Amphitheater, Little Big Town. You can win by listening, so stick around. The YouTube live chat poll today is, do you consider yourself blue collar, white collar, or something else? Comment in the chat if it's the last one, and we will give you the results of that poll, and we'll talk about it a little bit here in a minute too. 1:45. This time check is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
Jerry Kelly
AnnieFryShow.com.
The Annie Fry Show YouTube live chat poll of the day is happening now.
Tune in to the Annie Fry Show live stream. Vote and be a part of the conversation by typing in Annie Fry on YouTube. Subscribe and leave a comment.
This is the Annie Fry Show. The Annie Fry Show is streaming online. Watch us live on YouTube and subscribe.
Right now, streaming right now, I think it's streaming, but we're seeing news coverage of the Menendez brothers hearing that's going on in Los Angeles. And the whole point, everyone who's been following this knows, the whole point of this hearing is to try to get the Menendez brothers released from prison, basically because of a Netflix documentary that went into talking about the Menendez brothers. And Ryan, you've seen this. You're familiar with this over the past few months and even into years. What are your thoughts before I just jump in? What are your thoughts on the Menendez brothers? Should they be released? And is it even proper to have a hearing on getting them released when there's no question that they killed their parents?
Well, that's my question, is why I hate the stupid Netflix podcasts, Real Crime World. I hate that crap.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people really, really enjoy, obviously they're doing really well. People like them. I don't. I think they're stupid. And they always, here's the thing about documentaries and true crime, anything that's trying to just retell an event from the past, is that they're never going to give you the truth.
They always have an agenda.
And their agenda may be as innocent as making you interested in it. So it may not have, if you watch a documentary about food and food processing or something, the agenda may not be to take down the food processing industry. It may be to prop it up, or vice versa. But it also may just be to make you think there's something interesting about that topic.
Yes.
Which there might not be at all. But if somebody's making a documentary, they're going to add drama. They're going to add some sort of controversy. They always say, nobody writes a research paper proving everything that you already know was true.
Exactly.
They always write a research paper proving something different, because that's the only way you get attention. It's the only way you get grants in scientific studies. So the documentary world's the same way.
Mr. Range, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I look at this and my question about the Menendez brothers is, did they receive a sentence? Is this what they got? Is this part of the parole agreement of their sentence? Because if not,
it's not.
So is there new evidence that came out with this documentary?
There is not.
So they're just saying, hey, we did a documentary on him, and now people are like, oh.
But the prior prosecutor, and this demonstrates what I railed about when it comes to Kim Gardner for years in St. Louis.
Okay.
I was one of her most vocal critics. And her perspective is similar to the prior prosecuting attorney in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Which is this, that our country is racist to the core, that our country, and the only way to overcome systemic racism, this is for Kim Gardner, is to not prosecute crime. That's what the prosecutor's job is, to not prosecute crime.
Okay.
If you look at the prosecutor in Los Angeles, his perspective was that if someone commits child abuse, then those people, anything that happens against them is justified. So that the Menendez brothers shouldn't be in jail because they were simply giving their father what he was due. Now, here's the flaw. There's a lot of flaws in that reasoning, okay? The biggest flaw that comes to my mind, even from a legal perspective, is twofold. First, was that properly raised at the initial trial? If it was, then what is there to talk about now? Because that was discussed then, and that was factored into the decision to convict them.
Mm-hmm.
The jury convicted them, and the judge sentenced them with that information. And it was brought out at the trial. Secondly, even if you buy into all of this, that the Menendez brothers were sexually abused, that they were simply fighting back and defending themselves, here's the enormous flaw in that reasoning. There's been no allegations that the mother did anything, right? The mother didn't sexually abuse the boys. And so even if you concede the point that the father did, which is not a fact. Some say he did, some say he didn't. That's a disputable fact. But even if you assume hypothetically that he did, how can abuse from the father justify the execution and the murder of the mother? And so on that ground alone, you say, well, even if everything that you say is true, Menendez brothers, you still killed your mom, and your mom never sexually abused you. And even if she was aiding and abetting the father, she wasn't the one doing the sexual abuse. And there's no justification, even if you buy into that sympathetic argument that says it's okay to commit crime if you were abused, it's okay. Even if you buy into that, that doesn't apply to the mother.
You know a lot about this Menendez case. Can you now do Joey Buttafuoco?
I can't, but you can.
Oh, thanks. I wasn't expecting that. Let me ask you this, though, because the logic that you brought up is something that is prevalent on the left. A lot of times I like to say, well, that's the far left. No, this is actually very much part of leftist orthodoxy ideology.
Correct.
Is that if you are not white, not straight, not male, you have been persecuted in some way. And the more boxes you check off, it's called intersectionality, right? The more boxes you check off, the more you're persecuted no matter what. So if that's true and you are a criminal by the justice standards, what they're saying is the only way for us to make sure that actual social justice is served to you is that if you commit a crime, we just don't do anything to you. Is that right?
Yeah, the idea is that from the left's perspective, and I'm making sure that I articulate their concept correctly because I wholeheartedly disagree with it. But the concept is that you have been wronged, so that any wrongs that you commit are balanced out by the wrongs that were committed against you. I think that's a better way of looking at it.
So it's a look at the whole of society incorrectly, but it is a look at the whole of society, but never any individual responsibility.
Correct, because it's a groupthink mentality. But the problem, and where this all breaks down with the Menendez brothers, is that a lot of this social construct isn't just against whites, but it's also economic class. That, well, you're rich, you're privileged, you have all of the breaks in life, and so if someone commits a crime against you, then you have no justification because you're white and privileged. Look at the case of, who was the attorney in St. Louis years ago that had the gun? He and his wife had the gun. They were the attorneys.
Oh,
and they were on their
McCloskey.
Sorry, I just drew a blank there. So the McCloskeys, the saying goes, had no right to protest anything because they were wealthy and privileged. Right? Well, look at the Menendez brothers. Their family was very wealthy.
I was going to say, weren't they wealthy?
They were extremely wealthy. And in fact, the boys were raised where they went to private schools and they had a life of luxury and privilege. They all drove like Jaguars and expensive cars. I can't even park my car next to a Jaguar, much less drive one. So at this point, you say, really, that now you're extending this social construct worldview to the Menendez brothers because perhaps they might be Hispanic, but you look at that and you say they were far wealthier than I will ever be, and so how does that same worldview apply to them when they were clearly in the upper class?
It just seems like it's very surface level, simplistic thinking.
Yes.
When you look at like the application of some of these intersectionality concepts, I like you were saying, I wholeheartedly disagree with the idea that no one individual is responsible for their own actions.
Right.
I think you are always responsible for your actions. Now, you can make arguments about your actions being justified or not, but I don't understand. I cannot even wrap my head around the concept that the Menendez brothers were somehow justified in their actions without solid proof.
Well, I know we're coming up here on what's our out time here? 5650. But here's something we studied in law school: the reasonable person test. Is that what would a reasonable person do in a similar circumstance? And that's how you judge whether someone acted correctly or incorrectly, right? So one of the questions that came up in law school is, if someone commits murder, by definition, what they did isn't reasonable. Or by definition, they had to be not of reasonable mind to commit that crime. So therefore, should they be excused from punishment? Because anyone who commits murder is not in their reasonable mind when they do it.
I don't like the reasonable person concept.
No, I don't either.
It moves
right?
around too much.
It's too squishy. When do you apply it? When do you not? And I think that is what's being applied to the Menendez brothers now by saying just because they may have been abused by their father, that means that all of what they did was justified and they should be released from prison. That's false. We should reject that. And I'm glad that the new prosecuting attorney in Los Angeles has done that very thing. Brad Young sitting in for Annie Fry, who's out today. Stick around. We'll have more after this on 97.1 FM Talk.
I just wanna make you happier, baby.
Hey guys, it's Mark Bearden. If you're struggling with low energy, performance issues, or weight gain, Game Day Men's Health has got you covered with testosterone therapy, ED treatments, and more in all of a relaxed man cave environment. At Game Day, you'll get a free testosterone test and consultation, all in just 1 hour. Game Day is the premier men's health clinic with locations in Chesterfield, O'Fallon, Missouri, and Glen Carbon, Illinois. Visit GameDayMen'sHealth.com. That's GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Get back in the game with Game Day Men's Health.
There's something new taking shape in downtown St. Louis, an experience unlike anything else in sports. From the hustle on the pitch to all the flags and smoke and 22,000 fans chanting STL in unison throughout Energizer Park. This is more than just a game. This is St. Louis City Soccer. Learn more at stlcitysc.com/tickets and experience it now.
One of the things with running is I want to enjoy the run, but I never made it very far because the arches in my feet just killed me. So when I got to the end of my rope and I said, I have to do something to get rid of the pain, and a couple people recommended the Good Feet store to me. I loved how I could go in and get a free personalized arch support fitting. They put that time, that work, that effort into helping you find the right arch supports. And you can walk around this store with these in your shoes and try them out before you purchase them. So after I got my arch supports, the arches on my feet stopped hurting and the pain instantly, literally instantly went away. So if you have pain, go. Find a Good Feet store and go. There is an answer. Find the simple solution that will get rid of your pain. I'm Rondi, and that's my Good Feet story.
See how Good Feet arch supports work for you before you buy with a free fitting and test walk at the Good Feet store.
Visit one of our 2 locations, Creve Coeur and Shiloh, Illinois, and at goodfeet.com.
You never got a sense of how big the community was until we all pour into this auditorium. 4,000 or 5,000 people. We're all here for the same reason. Real estate investing, living the lifestyle.
That's April on her Expo experience. It's coming again. Join Del Walmsley and Lifestyles Unlimited for Expo 2025, May 7th through the 10th in Irving, Texas. Get hands-on training from successful real estate investors and learn proven strategies that work. Find out more and save $100 when you text EXPO to 88007, EXPO to 88007.
I'm Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey. Human trafficking is occurring right here in Missouri. You can help combat it by learning the signs of human trafficking and reporting suspicious activity to law enforcement. Victims may appear malnourished, show signs of mental or physical abuse, or avoid social interaction. If you're a victim or know someone who needs help, contact the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888 or text the word HELP to Be Free. Together, we can fight human trafficking in Missouri.
Brought to you by the Missouri Attorney General's Office.
KFTK FM Florissant from the Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's Injury Lawyers Studio. Call 314-500-5000.
That's 314-500-5000.
All on the free Odyssey app.
Deportation fights go back to court. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. There's a hearing in Louisiana about former Columbia University grad student Mahmoud Khalil, the green card holder accused of taking part in anti-Semitic and disruptive activities during pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia.
The immigration judge gave the federal government just about 24 hours to submit evidence that Khalil poses a threat to U.S. foreign policy. The evidence includes a 2-page memo from the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. It states, quote, the public's actions and continued presence of Khalil in the United States undermines U.S. policy to combat anti-Semitism around the world and the United States. Khalil's attorneys argue this just is not enough.
Fox's Brooke Taylor outside the courthouse. Either side could appeal a decision from the judge. Government attorneys telling a different federal judge they intend to comply with a Supreme Court order to facilitate the return of a Maryland resident wrongly deported to El Salvador. But in a attorney for Kilmar Garcia, Simon Sandoval Moschenberg, says they're not satisfied with what they heard today.
For the second time in this case, they sent a lawyer into court who had no answers. He explained that his clients, the government, have chosen not to give him any information, not to give him any evidence.
An immigration judge ruled Garcia could not be sent to his native country over safety concerns. The Justice Department blames a paperwork error, but still accuses Garcia of being a gang member. A federal judge rejecting an effort by religious groups to block immigration enforcement operations at houses of worship. The judge says only a handful have happened, and that for now, the groups haven't shown enough legal harm to justify a preliminary injunction. A convicted killer mistakenly released from a Georgia jail is captured in Florida. The U.S. Marshals confirming it to the Associated Press. He was convicted of killing his ex-girlfriend. Florida is where her mother lives. America is listening to Fox News.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? When it comes to Big Wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Switch to Consumer Cellular to get the same fast nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Plans start at just $20 a month, and now for a limited time, new customers can get their second month free. Call 1-888-FREEDOM, visit a store near you, or consumercellular.com and start saving today. Plans include $5 credit for autopay and e-billing. Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
Why'd I go to the doctor? My heart would race just taking my son to practice. It didn't feel right. So I got checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation. Weather.
Not much going on this afternoon, though. The northwest low is back, and that's why we are noticeably cooler. 57 for the high. Tonight, clear skies return. It's cold overnight, 37 for the low. The weekend looks pretty good. Saturday, sunny. A cool day, 64. Saturday night, the night of the full pink moon, partly cloudy and 47, and Sunday sunny and warming up to 75. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
When's the last time you gave your home's exterior a little love? Hi, it's Kim, and if your siding is cracking, it's fading, or just doesn't stand up to our St. Louis weather, it's time to call Lakeside Renovation and Design because they're experts in James Hardie siding, which is this durable, low-maintenance option, and it looks beautiful. Plus, you have customizable colors and textures, and so you can give your home a completely new look while protecting it for decades. Don't wait until the small problems turn into big ones. Visit lakesidearty.com to schedule your free consultation.
I'm Dr. Nick Barnes at Health From Within Family Chiropractic in Rock Hill. At Health From Within, our mission is to transform the way you manage your health by bringing you the truth about health and healing. We use proven techniques to remove interference in the nervous system and maximize health naturally, without drugs or surgery. Connect with me at healthfromwithinstl.com and join me for Maximize Living on this station every Sunday at 8 a.m. or download the Maximize Living podcast, healthfromwithinstl.com.
St. Louis homeowners, are you thinking about upsizing, downsizing, or relocating this year? Hey, it's Mark Cox. When life happens and you need to sell your home, I recommend you talk to my friend and trusted realtor, Gloria Liu, with Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Gloria understands every seller situation is unique. That's why she has created custom programs to fit every home seller's needs. Many people move out of necessity, like for a new job or financial challenges. That's why Gloria created her guaranteed multiple cash offer program, giving you up to 6 of the best offers with at least one at 100% of market value, or Gloria will pay you the difference. Plus, you sell faster. Gloria did this for the Miller family in Clayton and got them more money than they were expecting and within their time frame. She did it for them. She can do it for you. Get your offers today by calling Gloria Liu at 314-325-6888 or visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com. That's GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Gloria and seller must agree on price and possession date.
The Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup Tournament is coming back to St. Louis. Join us on May 6th or May 7th at Energizer Park for the round of 32 and watch St. Louis City SC compete with teams from around the country for America's most historic trophy. Tickets are available now for the round of 32 and round of 16. Learn more at stlcitysc.com/Open Cup and help the boys in red bring home an 11th U.S. Open Cup to our city.
You ask a lot of your liver, so give it the support it needs with Active Liver. Go to NordicuSA.com, Amazon, or ask for Active Liver at your local CVS. New you, new Nordic.
The Foley Foundation works tirelessly to bring American hostages home. Kim St-Ange here. We're raising awareness about the Foley Foundation's mission to reunite families, hold captors accountable, and prevent future hostage taking. Visit 971talk.com/events to learn more.
That is exactly what I needed to hear.
They got someone here knows what they're talking about.
Let's up, let's ride. Gotta love this American ride.
Hey, you need to take some time to get the full picture.
Come on, turn the radio on. It's Saturday and I won't be long.
Don't get me wrong, I love the ladies. I mean, they rev my engine, but they don't belong in the newsroom. It is Anchor Man, not Anchor Lady.
What do you want from me? I'm not America's sweetheart.
Goodness sake, kid, keep your voice down. Your father's listening to the radio.
I'm not America's sweetheart.
This is the Annie Fry Show.
Wow, I was so overcome by the bad singing.
He's in the room with us, Brad.
I'm sorry. That was such an assault on my ears.
Ryan, don't you listen to him. You have the voice of an angel.
Yeah, says every deaf person in America. So I just thought, oh my goodness, I didn't know what to say. I was dumbfounded, speechless.
I guess I'm speechless now because of the pain. Normally I got funny comebacks, but when it cuts that deep, I don't know anything.
Your words hurt, but your honesty is appreciated.
Yeah, there you go. Well, speaking of appreciating comments, I did want to respond to one comment that was on the that was posted on our YouTube channel, and that was a person we were talking about the Menendez brothers, and Ender says that self-defense generally allows the equivocal reciprocal force to end the threat. And that statement is somewhat correct. If someone is attacking you, you're always allowed to use force to respond to the attack. But in this instance, the Menendez brothers plotted the execution of their parents. They planned it. They planned it in advance. It was premeditated. So had there been an attack on the parents at the time that an assault was occurring, that would have been considered self-defense. But that's not what happened here. Because of the abuse, and we don't know that there was sexual abuse, but there's evidence of that, so we can assume for conversation purposes that there was sexual abuse going on. Because of that, the brothers then, in a premeditated fashion, planned the execution of their parents. That is not reciprocal. That is not self-defense. That is premeditated murder. And that's why I'm against any sort of a parole that would justify or an attempt to justify the planned execution of your parents. So I just wanted to deal with that before we moved on to other topics. Ryan, what's the poll? Tell us again about the poll that we got.
The poll today, YouTube live chat poll, is: do you consider yourself blue collar, white collar, or other?
So how would you answer that question?
I would have to say white collar, but I'd feel bullied into it. I don't really feel like a white collar worker, although we're all office. So in that sense, we are. But I actually would answer other just because I don't feel like a white collar worker. I mean, what we do is kind of strange, you know?
It does carry with it a certain, stigma to be white collar. It's like, oh, these are rich people that don't. And maybe that's because I grew up in a blue collar home. My parents were truck drivers and stuff like that. But there was a stigma that goes along with being white collar. When I look at it, I go, man, I'm white collar according to my job. You know, it's an office job. I don't really I've never really left here with dirt underneath my fingernails, that sort of thing. But I think as a producer, you're about as blue collar in a white collar job as you can get, because there's having done blue collar jobs, there are elements of being a producer that are blue collar-ish, reflective of blue collar, you know, like when we go on remotes, making sure that certain things are set up so that we can so we can stream or whatever. There's that aspect to it.
Can I just comment on what it means to be a producer?
Sure.
I was a producer for Dave Glover for about 5 months. Didn't last long because I wasn't very good at it. But But being a producer in general, like if people ask what a movie producer is, I always hated this answer, but the more I got into it, the more I'm like, that actually is the truth though. The producer is the one who does everything. Like that's what they do.
Makes it happen.
And so the executive producer and all these different titles, they don't really matter. They might matter with who's paying
Like
what. And
pecking order.
Yeah, they might. But the answer to the question of producer is it's a catch-all title because it's a catch-all job.
Yes.
To just do everything. And you make everything, all the trains run on time and everybody happy, and you make sure everything happens.
Make sure the audio's there,
Yeah.
make sure the video's there, make sure that the stream is correct, make sure that, the guests are lined up, make sure all of that, and then make sure that the live reads are ready to go. Anything that you like, if the show happens, there's so many things, so many boxes that I got to check. So like I said, it's like a blue collar position in a white collar job.
Well, I grew up, my dad was a coal miner, Southern Illinois. I'm the first in my family to ever go to college. So, I've been around blue collar most of my life. But there's no question that an attorney is a white collar job. However, I'm the IT guy at my office. And so I'm always hooking up computers. I'm under a desk, putting the wires together with Velcro cable ties, and I'm hooking all this stuff up. And those times, it doesn't feel like a white collar job when I'm under a desk, hooking up a computer. That does not feel white collar.
It's a little subjective, the question in general, which is why we ask it, because you can interpret it a little bit however you want.
Fosters discussion.
But being white collar, does that just mean you work in an office, or does that mean you do things particular that would pertain to an office? Or the other way, let's say you work for a construction company, but you're not the one doing all the construction.
Yes.
What does that mean? So there's a lot of gray area there, which is why I'm looking forward to seeing at the end of the day, which I haven't peeked at yet, seeing what our audience says about themselves.
You want to hear some?
And if folks, let me just plug this. If folks want to go and vote now, Ryan, how do they do that?
YouTube.com. And then you type in Annie Fry, and today's date will come up along with today's live stream. You'll see us right now animated. Look at my hands. Look at my hands.
You're doing things.
Yeah, you'll see us on there right now on the cameras, and you can participate in the conversation there and vote.
Yeah. Do you guys want to see what some of the listeners have said?
Absolutely.
So Russell said that other than he voted other because he's currently retired. He was a blue collar worker for 20 plus years and then became a white collar worker and finished his career that way. He says he's glad to have done both. Vicky says that she was soon to be retired, but has been in the administrative assistant field for over 40 years and not sure what that makes her. And I guess that depends on what type of administration you're assisting. Chris S. said a poll. I put white collar, but I'm in IT, and sometimes that's kind of both white and blue, which
like you just said. Absolutely.
Ender says, I answered white collar, but also being in IT, I could be both because enough times I'm up to my elbows in equipment. I have been there too, Russell. And then Joe said, I am both. I change from blue to white collar depending on the hour of the day. I'm not a business owner, but I would imagine many small business owners are the same way. So that's just a few. So keep your comments coming in and we can star more and talk about more from that.
Well, that's the kind of question that fosters a conversation. And I want to use that as a transition to talk about a bill that was filed. Actually, it got initial approval in Jefferson City in the Missouri House of Representatives on Monday. And the point of this bill is to prevent anti-Semitism in public schools. And here's what the bill does. And I want to get your reaction to whether this is a good idea or a bad idea. The bill would require Missouri's Department of Education to assign a staff member to monitor, and I'm putting this in quotes because this is from the bill, anti-Semitic discrimination and harassment, unquote. And also then to investigate whether schools have responsibility for these incidents. And it also encourages schools to teach pieces of Jewish American heritage. But this bill is creating a lot of controversy because of its implications, free speech implications. So is this something that's needed? Is this the way that you address that? And do you see that there's a situation where the harm could actually be greater than the good?
Did you say this is a Missouri bill?
Missouri bill, just in Missouri. And because, for example, at Wash U, we saw a lot after October 7. We saw a great deal of pro-Palestinian encampments at Wash U, at SLU. Now, those are at the collegiate level, not the high school level, but we also saw demonstrations at high schools in support of Palestine, and a lot of those protests turned into anti-Semitic rants, like the chanting of "From the river to the sea," which is a phrase that is advocating for the extermination of Israel. So, what do you think? Is this a good idea for this bill or not?
Do you know? Does the bill state clearly what the ramifications are for breaking the rules?
It says in the bill that the monitors are there to report information about these types of anti-Semitic discrimination and harassment events to determine whether the school is responsible financially for those.
So does Missouri, would that mean that Missouri would be maybe defunding these universities if they don't comply with it?
Potentially. Now, I think the bill is actually focused at secondary level schools like grade schools, high schools, middle schools. I don't know that it encompasses colleges.
Okay.
But from this example in the bill, they're wanting to set up monitors for the purpose of perhaps holding the school responsible for these types of incidents.
I don't know. This is a strange topic because it's hard. That's why I asked about enforcement, because I don't really know what it looks like to enforce a good idea. I mean, it's not a bad idea, but I get caught in how could this be used negatively? Because right now, when you have the people in charge who are passing it, you go, okay, well, I kind of trust those people, so must be a good bill. Well, no, hang on a second. What if somebody got in charge who you don't trust? How could they use that same bill? How could they put monitors all over the state to monitor your schools to do what they think is right? That seems dicey to me.
So was this just for anti-Semitism, or is this for
strictly for anti-Semitism?
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like putting a monitor into the schools is going too far. I don't think that schools should be okay with anti-Semitic rhetoric, symbols, stuff like that. And initially when you were talking about this, I thought you were talking about colleges. And with the colleges, I was like, because my initial thought was, well, let's just let the faculty enforce the rules. Don't be a bully. And then you said, and it's like, well, maybe it's colleges, and in colleges you can't really trust the faculty to do that.
No, you can't,
because it's bad. But now you're telling me it's
more aimed at secondary education.
I think that you just have the last thing schools need is more administrative costs.
Yes,
that's the last thing that they need. The administrative cost is where most of the money in education goes.
I don't think this would require them to hire someone to monitor. It just requires that the school would have to assign monitoring duties to an existing person at the school.
So they're just self-monitoring. If there's a problem going on in the school already, what are they going to go? Oh yeah, we appointed Dave. Dave's really against what we're doing. Dave. Let's put Dave in charge.
I just think, it's something like that. I think that's a faculty and a discipline issue that already should be taken care of. But I guess the question is how many incidents are we having of basically the schools looking the other way on anti-Semitic things at the secondary level school?
Well, I think in high school, certainly after October 7th, there was a lot of that at high schools. And the sponsor of the bill is a guy named George Ruza. His parents were in Nazi concentration camps. He came to America when his parents got released. And so there's obviously that emotional backdrop. And you'll find no greater supporter of Israel than me. I support them in every single way that I possibly can. I've even helped fundraise for Israeli soldiers in order to give them bulletproof vests, as they go against the Hamas. Sometimes they don't even have bulletproof vests. So I'm a big supporter. But here's the problem that I have with a free speech perspective, is that people are under this delusion that hate speech is banned in America. It is not. And there's a reason for it. And I've had these conversations with my liberal friends. They say, well, hate speech should be banned. Okay. How do you define what hate speech is? That's the problem. Okay. It's not that I want hate speech to happen. I don't. But for the government to control it, they have to define it. And under Brandenburg versus Ohio in 1968, the U.S. Supreme Court found an Ohio law unconstitutional that banned the burning of a cross. And you think that is the ultimate expression of hate speech. Banned it. And the Supreme Court said you can't do that because That is speech. Even though it's repulsive, it's repugnant, it's reprehensible. I can put in all the adjectives here that we can think of. But at the end of the day, we don't want government deciding what speech is okay and what speech is not okay. For example, in Canada, if you say anything against homosexuals, it's considered hate speech. Pastors have been prosecuted in Canada for saying the Bible condemns homosexuality. That was defined as hate speech. They've been prosecuted in Canada. And so that demonstrates this problem, that if the government defines what is okay to say and not to say, then that standard is going to change over time. And eventually, whatever the government doesn't want will be labeled hate speech. And then you will be prosecuted for simply protesting against the very government that wants to lock you up for saying those words.
Right. And people forget the purpose of the Constitution is to protect the people from the government.
Exactly.
Not the other way around.
Not the other way
when
around.
You put in hate speech requirements, what you're essentially doing is giving the government the power to police speech.
That's why the government, when it's policing speech, has to be, number one, content neutral. And secondly, it should be focusing on the actions, not the speech itself. For example, and I got into a debate with a guy when I used to have my evening show over on KMOX, when I was stating that all of these protesters in college campuses should be arrested. And then, of course, someone called up and said, how can you arrest somebody? They're protesting. Well, I wouldn't arrest them for protesting. But the right to protest doesn't mean the right to camp out. Doesn't mean the right to occupy a college campus for days and weeks at a time. And so they would be arrested for basically being on property that they shouldn't be on, trespassing. Not for their speech, but for the trespassing.
Yeah.
And you could do that here, where you say, well, we're not going to ban hate speech, even though it's hateful. But if you state that some individual Jewish person should be attacked, should have some violence put against him, that now you're encouraging action, not just speech. That should be prosecuted.
Well,
so I do have a legal problem with it, even though I'm one of the greatest supporters of Israel you'll ever find.
Well, let's not forget that on some of these campuses, they were actually preventing Jewish students from going to class or basically surrounding buildings that they were in.
And they had, I think it was in California, where if you were a Jew, you had to renounce Judaism in order to go into the library.
Wow.
That is reprehensible.
It's despicable.
So that's what the Trump administration is focusing on right now.
That's what the Trump administration is focusing on, is saying that if you as an administration allow actions against Jews that violate the Constitution, you as a university will be held responsible, will cut your funding.
And they are cutting their funding.
And they are cutting their funding.
They've cut $400 million from one university.
Right.
Which
Columbia,
makes you go,
right?
yeah, it's Columbia, which makes you wonder, how much money are these universities getting? That's nearly $500 million. And that might not be all the funding.
Right.
That was
That's
some of the funding.
part of it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that the Trump administration is taking those actions to protect the rights of Jewish students. You're not attacking the speech. They can still get up there and say all they want from the river to the sea. But when you're preventing Jewish students from going to school, that's an action, and that can be punished. Hey, we're over the clock here for the time to take a break. We've got more news of the day coming up next, right here on the Annie Fry Show. Brad Young sitting in 97.1 FM Talk.
This is the Annie Fry Show. Follow Annie on X at Annie Fry Show.
A lot of people, when they come in, they'll say, this is my last hope. The next step is getting them in the right arch supports. Our goal is to have that long-term change for them, to see someone that is in pain. I change things for them. See how we can help you with a free fitting at the Good Feet store.
Baseball is all about stepping up to the plate when it matters most. And when you've been injured, you need a heavy hitter in your corner. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, proud sponsor of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Injured? Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
We, without hesitation, recommend that anybody work with ThrottleNet. The experience will be as good as it's been for us, for anybody, because you'll get a true partnership and you'll be able to rest easy that you're going to get the service that you need while they're also doing all those things that you don't want to have to think about, that you don't want to have to worry about. They're always doing that in the background for you.
Don't wait for your next IT crisis. If your business depends on technology, you need a partner that's got your back. Contact ThrottleNet.com to get a free IT evaluation and see how we can support your IT everything.
Hey, Jimmy Fallon here with a quick listening tip for you. If you miss Fox Across America or any of your other Fox News favorites, do not worry. I got you covered. You can stream previously aired shows with Rewind, available exclusively on the free Odyssey app. So if you're busy work days, it doesn't mean you have to miss out on the news. Listen to your Fox shows on your time with Odyssey. To get started, just download the free Odyssey app and search for Fox News Radio. That's Odyssey, Audacy. I'm spelling it out in case you're a little slow like me.
This May, the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup is coming back to St. Louis. Join us at Energizer Park for the round of 32 as St. Louis City SC plays for this historic trophy. Get tickets now at stlcity.com/Open Cup.
You're listening to the Annie Fry Show live from the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation Studio. Air Comfort Service is donating a bag of food to Open Door Animal Sanctuary for every AC clean and check performed in April. To schedule your AC check, visit aircomfortservice.com.
News that's on time. On your time. Download the Odyssey app and dip in whenever you want. And stay on top of what's happening. 97.1 FM Talk on the Odyssey app.
Falling too fast to prepare for this. Tripping in the world could be dangerous. Everybody's
This is the Annie Fry Show. Find the podcast, on-demand audio, and more at 971talk.com/Annie.
Welcome back to the Annie Fry Show. You know, right here in the St. Louis area, we just saw a mayoral race just this week, and boy, they don't mess around with that. The new mayor takes office next Tuesday, Kara Spencer, the new mayor of St. Louis. And this is what she said when she was elected mayor. This was her comment, clip 14.
Oh, my message is that, look, I was elected to represent the entirety of St. Louis, and I hope to have the privilege and the honor to really build the trust through actions in the coming weeks, years, to be serving the entire city of St. Louis. And I think that'll bear out. We're really looking forward to making partnerships, new partnerships in particular, to build bridges and to build success across communities that haven't necessarily seen success in the past.
Well, the reason and what I want to bring up for conversation here is that she said she was elected to represent all the people in St. Louis, and yet only, I think, 14% of the electorate came out to vote. It was a pittance. When I saw those numbers, I was like, I was just shocked at the low turnout for the mayoral vote in the city of St. Louis. And is she really going to be the mayor of all of St. Louis, including the business people, including white collar workers who work in the city and may live in the city? What are your thoughts on the mayoral election, and what does Kara Spencer need to do to reverse the trend? Because all three of us here are either in Illinois or from Illinois, but certainly St. Louis is the magnet. It's the anchor for the region. What should the new mayor have on her agenda?
Well, we pay taxes here, so
yeah,
we don't get a vote, but we do pay taxes.
Yes.
So we should throw some tea into the river.
Throw some tea into that Mississippi River. And say,
yep.
Take that, Kara. No, I'm actually very much for Kara. I don't know what she's going to do. I understand ideologically that she's pretty far left. So is Tashara Jones. So is any mayor of St. Louis going to be.
Correct.
But the hope is that she's just competent, on basic stuff. Hopefully she supports the police, and she realizes that if you want to bring people and activity and money back downtown, which we desperately need downtown, after 2020, man, people fled like crazy, and it was because of bad policies. So she desperately needs to be working with the business community, with police, and just change the image of the city to let people know that she's going to do things a little bit differently. It also comes down to just basic government functions. I keep hearing it. We just went through a really nasty ice storm in February where the ice, literally outside this building, there was ice preventing you from parking in the regular parking lane. And there's school buses because of school here that made you drive in the turn lane for over a month because you couldn't park. And I get that some storms are worse than others. I understand.
Yeah, and that was a particularly bad one.
And there's a lot of grace there because everybody in the region wasn't just downtown St. Louis that was dealing with it. Everybody dealt with that. Lasted a long time. But at some point, you got to go, yes, but why was it so much worse here than in my town? Because it lasted a while in my town too, but it was worse here.
Yes, it was.
And all of that kind of stuff, you go, I just hope that even if you're a very, very progressive, ideological person, you can perform the basic functions of a mayor that make your city attractive.
Yeah. I actually had a conversation with a couple people from the other radio station here last night, actually, because I didn't know much about her. And one of the things I think that she really needs to focus on in St. Louis, because you want businesses to come back, and there's an element of working with businesses to bring businesses back.
Yes.
But businesses won't be down here if people don't feel safe. Now, I know I've heard them say, oh, crime numbers are down and all this other stuff.
Nobody believes that.
And nobody believes it.
Nobody.
So even if, and I don't know, I've seen people fudge numbers and, if crimes aren't being reported because they know that they're not getting prosecuted and all that other stuff, and they're going to stop reporting them. Well, your reports of crimes are going to be down. That doesn't mean crime is actually down.
Correct.
But you need to focus on making people feel safe. So you come downtown and you feel safe downtown. That if that's visual presence of more police officers, if that's knowing that police officers are actively policing and not just kind of bystanders or whatever. And I'm not saying that St. Louis Police Department are, but I know that after having all those years of Kim Gardner, that can be very disheartening for a police department. And so one of the things that she needs to focus on is restoring that pride in the St. Louis Police Department, getting visual presence of officers, getting and I don't know how the mayor's office can do this, but boarded up buildings are bad for visuals and making you feel safe. Make downtown look appealing.
You need money.
They've got a huge settlement. And I don't know, have they ever decided what they're doing with the money from that Ram settlement?
No, they haven't.
You've got a huge pool of money that you could actually get started on there. Get businesses to return to downtown. Get people, working in downtown so that they go out for lunch and all this other stuff, and that will build other businesses. I think really it all starts with making downtown feel safe. Because we talked about this in a meeting we had. It's hard to get people from the counties, be they Illinois counties or St. Louis counties, to come downtown.
Yes.
They don't feel safe.
They don't. And part of that, though, is this. It's an ideological issue. And here's the ideological issue. And we actually have models of how to make this work. The ideological issue is this. Progressivism, the idea of being a progressive, sees business as being the enemy. Businesses are exploiters of people. If you are wealthy, that means you became wealthy by taking money from someone else. It's the idea that all of economics is a pie. And if your slice of the pie is bigger, then that means someone else's slice of the pie must be smaller because they see it as a zero-sum game. And so because of that, if you're anti-business, then you're never going to attract the businesses that need to come downtown because businesses pay taxes, employees pay taxes. And think about the cities where you all have been, where you felt safe. As you're thinking about those cities, I promise you that one of the things that made you feel safe was there were a lot of people there. Okay. And if there are a lot of people there, something has to bring those people there. They're just not showing up to panhandle. They're showing up for something, whether it's a sporting event, a restaurant, a bar, an activity, an event, a concert, something, right? And so this requires a plan. And if you look at the cities right now that have Democrat mayors, Nashville is a great example. Nashville has a Democrat mayor. But what have they done to build Nashville? They're a Democrat mayor, but they're not progressive. They're a Democrat mayor, but they recognize the city only works, whether it's from feeling safe, being safe or being a hub, it only works when you attract businesses. And you can't attract a business if your worldview says businesses are evil. So I would hope that Kara Spencer, which it's a slim hope, I promise you, but she could set aside her progressivism and try to enact policies that attract businesses, that make people want to come downtown. Because right now a progressive isn't going to make that happen because her worldview would prevent that from happening.
The other thing that's annoying about St. Louis is that there is a lot of opportunity for growth in business.
Oh,
and there's
yes.
so much beautiful architecture in
Oh
St.
my
Louis.
gosh, yeah.
And I'm
Gorgeous.
not talking about like Soldiers Memorial and the library, the
No.
places that everybody knows.
The
I'm talking
buildings.
about just
Office
average
buildings.
buildings.
Yes.
There's just really cool looking stuff all over St. Louis, whether it be downtown, South City, North, whatever. There's a lot of opportunity. I do real estate. There's a lot of opportunity to buy pretty cheap real estate.
Yes.
If you knew it was headed in a certain direction. And I know
Right.
a lot of people in that world who are just like, I'm just not going to invest there because I don't know where it's going. And I really don't know what kind of clientele I'll have right now, and so on and so forth. You've got to go to businesses who are not out to destroy the world. I don't get that concept. People want to invest money in places where they think they can make back money, and it's cyclical, it's capitalism, it's what makes everything run.
And one of the biggest gifts to the city is when you look at it's not the Rams settlement money. That's a one time you spend it and it's gone. You have to have something that has continual and ongoing impact on the city. And you look at the National Geospatial Agency that's going to be locating in North St. Louis, and then you look at the Boeing F-47 that's going to be built in and around the airport. And you put those two together, and you have an opportunity to make St. Louis a tech hub that people would want to move here and work here. But you have to have a business environment that looks at them and says, you're not the enemy. You're someone that we actually want. And here are our policies that are designed to attract you business to locate in the city of St. Louis. And I don't know that a progressive can do that, because a lot of times that means reducing taxes. And they say, oh, those evil corporations don't pay enough taxes. Well, then you're not going to reduce taxes to give an incentive for a company to locate here. And I just hope that she gets some non-progressive advisors that will help her to create an environment that will, pardon the phrase, but make St. Louis great again, because that's what we need.
Going into Tuesday, which was election day, the Mark Cox Morning Show, they did their voter guide, and I know that Mark Reardon was talking about the election a lot too. We didn't talk about it as much because our Illinois' election was last Tuesday.
Yes.
So we talked a lot more about it the week before, but he was talking about it that morning. Mark was, and I do a lot of production here. And they sent me some liners on Monday. Said, "Oh, we want to play some liners going in and out of songs to remind everybody that it's election day." And one of the liners they wrote before the election was hoping for more than 14% turnout. And it was supposed to be a joke.
14%.
It ended up exactly 14% because that's what it always is. Because the same few people that show up for these elections that decide everything. I do want to report though, because I was hearing the results come in. If you live in Missouri, apparently and you're conservative, apparently it just didn't go that well for you. I don't know that there were no wins, but they were few and far between. The exact opposite thing happened in Illinois. In Madison County, at least, Brad, I know you're not in Madison, but in Madison County, all the races I was watching went, I would say 80% of what we were hoping did happen.
Wow.
And
that's fabulous.
I'm in Collinsville, and we had really contentious local elections where it was like hard right, hard left playing out on the national scale, like in your town. And these are people that you see at the store,
Yeah.
You're like, why is this happening? But it was really, really contentious. And the people that you hoped would win generally did. And I just didn't think that got reported enough.
No, it was not.
Because the Missouri stuff didn't quite go as well as the Republican side was hoping. But I got to tell you, Madison County did really well in Illinois.
Good.
So,
well, speaking of voting guides, that's the biggest thing I miss about the Riverfront Times. I thought the Riverfront Times voting guide was the best ever, because whoever the Riverfront Times endorsed, I knew to vote for the other person, right? So it was almost like 100% accurate. If they said this candidate is who we endorse, You cannot go wrong voting for the other candidate. And I thought that was the most accurate voting guide that I had ever seen. Hey, we got to take a break here. We've got coming up, my goodness, on the last segment here on the Annie Frey Show, we'll be talking about the results of our poll. If you haven't done it yet, go to YouTube, type in Annie Frey. You'll have the date. You click on that. You can participate in the poll. In the next segment, we'll discuss the results of the poll right here on the Annie Frey Show, 97.1 FM Talk.
What's your favorite four-letter word? Chances are you've said it more than a few times dealing with this crazy world we live in. But at Compass Retirement Solutions, our four-letter word of choice is hope. Hope for a better tomorrow. And hope that your retirement plans don't take a back seat. You've watched inflation soar. And maybe your retirement future feels a little uncertain right now. But all hope is not lost. Find out exactly how much risk you're still taking with your investments. Find out how you may be able to save big on taxes. And find out how having a written retirement plan just might give you the hope you've been looking for. Call today to set up a meeting. 314-373-1598. That's 314-373-1598. Compass Retirement Solutions. 314-373-1598. Firm offers insurance services but does not provide tax advice. Investments and services offered through Compass Retirement Group, a registered investment advisory firm in Missouri and Illinois. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Clint Black in concert. Clint Black, an incredible night featuring some of his greatest hits. This Saturday, 7 p.m., the Family Arena. Clint Black in concert. Special guests Ruby Lee and Emily Ann Roberts. On sale now at the Carroll House Furniture box office located at the Family Arena or Ticketmaster. Don't miss Clint Black.
It's the greatest pop rock of the 60s and 70s. The Happy Together Tour 2025 with the Turtles, Jay and the Americans, Little Anthony, Gary Puckett and the Union Gap, the Vogues, and the Cowsills. August 21st, the Family Arena. Reserve seats on sale now at the Carroll House Furniture box office located at the Family Arena or Ticketmaster.
Hey guys, Glover here for my friends at Triton Exteriors. Not sure if you've noticed, but the storms seem to be especially bad this spring. If you had James Hardy Smart Siding, you wouldn't have to worry about it. It's not going to be damaged like in the 314-day storm. So we do roofing, siding, gutters, fences. We're always going to be the middle bid. We're never going to cut corners. We're never going to take advantage of you. Call 314-717-1159 or triton-stl.com.
There's something new taking shape in downtown St. Louis. An experience unlike anything else in sports. From the hustle on the pitch to all the flags and smoke and 22,000 fans chanting STL in unison throughout Energizer Park. This is more than just a game. This is St. Louis City Soccer. Learn more at stlcitysc.com/tickets and experience it now.
If you're looking for the best eye care in St. Louis, look no further than the doctors of Ophthalmology Associates. Doctors Greg Birdie, Ranjan Malhotra, Robert Brusati, and Andrew Royer. Make your appointment today at youridoc.com or call 314-966-5000. Ophthalmology Associates.
The YouTube live chat poll today is, do you consider yourself blue collar, white collar, or other? I have not peeked at the results of this poll, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they will be. So vote in the YouTube live chat poll. You got about 10 minutes before we get the results. Also, Little Big Town is coming to St. Louis July 25th at Hollywood Casino Amphitheater. Guess what? Now's the time to call to win Little Big Town tickets. This is your last chance. Be the 9th caller at 314-241-9797, 314-241-9797, and the 9th caller will win a pair of tickets to see Little Big Town on July 25th. It is 2:44. This time check is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
JerryKelly.com.
This is the Annie Frey Show. The Annie Fry Show is streaming online. Watch us live on YouTube and subscribe.
Now, see, Ryan, you're just singing that. That singing voice of yours is perfect. You've got a great singing voice, singing background here. That's fantastic.
And such incredible range.
Oh, yeah. You sound better than Michael Jackson.
I sound better than everybody ever.
I'm the incredible range in the room here, okay?
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah. I always use the joke, I'll always be young. It comes over just about as well.
Forever young.
Forever young. I'll always be young. See, with B, Brad Young, I'll always be young.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah, that's my email address, be young, because it's good to be young. That's right. That is so squirrely. I once worked on a political campaign for a person, I won't mention her name, but she was a dental hygienist, and we were talking about slogans for the campaign. She was running to be state rep, and in my my most facetious voice, I suggested, "How about this?" And remember, she's a dental hygienist, right? I said, "How about this as a campaign slogan? Let's stop the decay in Jefferson City." And I thought everyone would start laughing because I was making a joke, right? And everyone went, "Oh, that's good. We should write that down." I thought, "No, don't write that down. It's stupid." I was trying to be funny here, and everyone started writing it down. So
did that end up working? Did they use it?
No, they didn't. Thankfully, because that would have been colossally bad. Speaking of colossally bad, see, I got a habit doing this.
You're the best.
I got a habit of doing this. I do it at home too, and then my wife throws stuff at me. But Brad,
seems a little much.
It is
to be doing that at home, but
I know.
Okay,
we're gonna transition to this.
I get that at the dinner table. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Speaking of this,
honey, are you ever not on?
Yeah.
Like, can you just be real with me for a second?
You've been talking to my wife.
Speaking of mashed potatoes, have you considered our mortgage?
Yes. No, speaking of mashed potatoes, the cognitive ability of Biden's brain has been really impacted here because it was mashed potatoes. And
does
speaking
dinner
of Biden,
feel like a deposition?
I work very hard. I'm going to tread carefully because my wife might be listening. I try very hard not to make conversations sound like depositions or cross-examination at trial. But the best example of this, when one of my daughters was, 5, and we caught her in a lie. It was a blatant lie.
I never thought about having a dad that was a lawyer.
It was the most blatant lie. And I sat her on the stairs on the first step of the stairwell, and I'm cross-examining her for 20 minutes, and the girl would not crack. And after she wouldn't admit that she lied, even though we had evidence of it, I presented her with evidence of it, and she just kept saying, "Dad, I don't know what you're saying here, but I did not lie." And I gave her the evidence, and I even gave statements from other people that proved she lied. She withstood all the cross-examination, and then after it was over, my wife said, "Brad, you just got whooped by a 5-year-old." Yeah, some kind of good lawyer I am. So,
speaking of being a good lawyer,
no, that's not the topic at all.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to help.
But here's the thing. One of the things that hasn't been discussed enough about COVID was all of the lies that we were told by the Biden administration. And I think it's important, not just because they were lies, but because this one singular event impacted the entire planet in a way that very few events ever have. And we were lied about how it started. We were lied to about how it was spread. We were lied to about how that 6-year-olds had to be vaccinated when realistically and statistically 6-year-olds couldn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
We were lied to about who was impacted the most. We were told it impacts everyone equally when the stats now show that it was the old and people who already had pre-existing conditions. We were lied to at every stage. And we were even lied to. A report came out just this week that the Biden administration was required by law in December of 22 to release the information about 7 U.S. military service members who contracted COVID-like symptoms in October of 2019. The Biden administration refused to release the information, and Congress never acted upon it. And now we know that where were these soldiers? They were in Wuhan, China.
Mm.
And in Wuhan, China, they contracted COVID in October of 2019. The Biden administration covered it up. Trump administration released this information this week. They said they were complying with the law because the prior administration did not. But at every turn, we were lied to about why COVID happened, how it happened, and where it came from. But I guess one of the questions that I have even to this day is why? Why were we lied to about all of this? Because a lie is typically told to cover up information that we don't want to have released. Why would the left lie about COVID? What was to be gained by those lies?
I think it's the same as anything else. It's money and power simultaneously, because you got the power of throwing off really the normal rule of law. There are ways you're supposed to vote. Now you don't have to do that now. There are ways you're supposed to handle emergency declarations. Now we'll just keep declaring them. There are ways that you're supposed to handle the economy. That will just shut it down. There's a lot of power that they gained by doing that, and they kept it for way longer than we were led to believe that they would. And that's what always is going to happen if somebody gets power. They're just going to hold on to it for as long as they possibly can. The second is money, and we know now how much money was flowing both from the government around to probably friends of people who were writing those checks. And then second, the pharmaceuticals absolutely bought off everybody.
Correct.
They bought off everybody. And to find out, and we knew this at the time, that's the thing. So much of this stuff, we knew when it was happening, that it was happening, but it felt like it was so important that we were still on the air that whole time, because we would scream it from the rooftops. We'd get banned from socials, and we're like, we just can't care. We have to keep saying it. But it was like you couldn't crack through the official facade because people were afraid, and they used that fear against people.
I think that there's also an element of Dr. Anthony Fauci, and there was an element of protecting him, because at the very beginning of this stuff, he, whether or not this came from a lab, whatever, it was a wet market, was it naturally occurring? There's still so much fuzziness surrounding that. There's emails and emergency meetings that he called that, the people are like, I don't know, this looks more like an engineered virus than not one. Then he calls this meeting and all these people flip 180 degrees. What role did the National Institutes of Health, was it Allergies and Disease or Health or whatever that Fauci was ahead of? What
NIH.
role did it have in funding any sort of research that was going on at the Wuhan virology lab?
Yeah. And that's something that Rand Paul was really a very strong proponent of, is getting to the bottom of that. But when I ever talk to my progressive friends, and to me, I think this gets at the ideas of progressivism that are so repugnant among many, is this. When I talked to my progressive friends during COVID, and I said, it's obvious. All of the evidence points to it being a lab leak. Why can't we at least give the Americans the honest answer to where this came from? Here was the answer that I consistently receive from progressives. Well, the concern is that Americans will then will try to retaliate against Chinese Americans, and that they will discriminate against Chinese Americans if they know where this virus actually came from. And my response to that was always the same. I said, okay, all right, let's go with that theory for a second. All right, let's even assume, for purposes of discussion, that sort of retaliation would occur. You're really advocating that we should lie to the planet about the largest global pandemic that has ever existed since the middle centuries. We should lie about how it started in order to try to reduce discrimination that may or may not happen. And they said, yes. And so it was important to foster a lie in order to continue the ideology that people shouldn't be discriminated against. Now, I'm never for discrimination, but I'm also for the truth. Mm-hmm. We should have been told what happened, particularly at Brad Range, as you just mentioned. If we sent our tax dollars to China to develop the virus, or to develop the virus that eventually leaked from the lab, don't we have a right to know as taxpayers if we helped pay for a global pandemic? We have the right to know that as taxpayers. Oh, no. No, it came from a bat that ate a squirrel that sneezed on someone, and that's how they got COVID. No, that's not how it happened.
That same progressive ideology that you're talking about is the same ideology that sent hundreds of thousands of people into the streets in the midst of COVID to protest, because that was okay to protest and you wouldn't get the virus. That wouldn't be a super spreader event, but going to church would be.
Yeah. And that's the point that I made over and over and over again. If you look at Nevada, in Nevada, casinos were open, even though casinos are one of the biggest super spreaders because people are drinking, laughing, smoking, and being in close proximity to one another. And yet churches were closed. And that to me revealed that it's all about money. Ryan, as you mentioned, it's all about money. And the state wanted the money from the casinos. Churches don't generate money. Let's shut down the churches, but leave the casinos and big box stores open. Brad Young, I've been sitting in today. Thanks for letting me hang out here.
Ethan just whispered to me that he doesn't know what he is in this poll. So you're just going to have to give the results and decide.
Okay, you're on, Ethan.
200 votes on today's YouTube live chat poll. Do you consider yourself blue collar, white collar, or another? We heard some of the responses in the chat. 11% say that they're the other option. 37% say that they're white collar. And the winner today, blue collar, 52%.
That's great to know. That's great to know.
The people have spoken. Hey, stick around. Mark Reardon will be speaking a lot coming up for the next 3 hours. Stick around. 97.1 FM Talk.
The Retirement Advisory Group, you can find them at 314-993-9494. That's 314-993-9494. They're there to help you feel calm through all of this chaos going on in the economy right now. If you are nearing retirement, he works especially, Thomas Helbig, Bob and Tammy Kershaw, they work especially with people just like you, folks who know that retirement is right around the corner. You've amassed a nice little nest egg and you want to make sure that it's protected from any sort of crazy market downturns, turns that you might encounter right now while the market is going crazy or in the future. You never know what's going to happen. You want to be insulated from that. And the Retirement Advisory Group can guide you through how to make that a possibility for you. Call and set up a no cost, no obligation conversation with them. And then when you talk to them, you'll learn how you can have a worry-free retirement. 314-993-9494, retirementkey.com.
I put money into real estate, and from there came one of my largest returns on one of my properties, which is about close to 300% return in about 14 months.
That's Joe Cantu on what Lifestyles Unlimited has done for him. Join Del Walmsley at Lifestyles Unlimited for Expo 2025, May 7th through the 10th in Irving, Texas. Get hands-on training from successful investors and learn proven strategies that work. Save $100 when you text EXPO to 88007, EXPO to 88007.
Summer is on the way, or should I say the heat in St. Louis, it's on its way. Be here before we even know it. If you haven't had your air conditioners checked and set up and ready to go for this cooling season, or if you were told you might need a new one, or you just think this is the time of the year, this year is the time to just go ahead and replace it. Prices are down, 0% financing is available. It's still the best time to call me. Don't put it off. One easy number in Missouri and Illinois. It is 314-293-2600. Again, that's